the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean, a radio show and podcast, and I am your host, Jeff Norton. Welcome. It is Friday. It's Friday for all those that are going to be joining us in YouTube and in the chat rooms. Happy Friday. Oh, man, a lot of things going on around here at the command ship. Got a new piece of equipment today. We've been playing with it, testing it out. Wow, that's really hot. It's working. So one of the things that you guys know, this is an adventure. One day when I figure this out, I am definitely going to be doing podcasts to show other podcasters or aspiring podcasters how to do this and all the lessons that I learned along the way. Now, one of the things is that in YouTube, we've been fighting audio issues. And unfortunately, because I've been fighting audio issues in YouTube, I let the audio issues get away from me on the radio. I did not know that. You guys got to let me know. Got to let me know that the audio over there was not that great. It was basically the caller was really soft and I was really loud. I got that big voice, that big, deep baritone voice. So it carries. So we, with the help of our friends over at Telos, have put in a new piece of equipment. And it is, I think, going to help us. Well, I'm playing with it now. The problem is I got to remember to do the radio show instead of look at all the charts and graphs and stuff. Maybe I'll do a Periscope. Show you guys what we see here in the studio. But it's a pretty impressive piece of equipment. And it... So it handles all of our audio compression for the radio. Now, I don't have everything enabled because I'm still reading. This is one of those things where you have to read. You definitely have to read the manual. You just can't plug this one in and go with it. There's a lot of reading. So we're still playing with it, but man, I can already tell in my headphones, the quality is incredible. It is like super, super high def. But enough of that. Yes, Sentinel, we are up to 140 subscribers on YouTube. Woohoo! Woohoo! Let's see if we can hit 200 this month. That would be averaging 100 a month. Not bad. Not bad at all. And everything. So, yes, we got the new audio going, the new audio codec and equipment running there for the radio side. Someone wants to jump out there and take a look at it, that would be awesome. Thank you very much. But more importantly, we got to do it when the guest is on. One thing, like I said, is that my big booming voice. See, what happens is that when you move really in like this, it gets really, really, really loud. And then when you move back like this, it gets really, really, really soft. But see, the software, no matter how I'm talking and stuff, it will actually keep it at one level no matter where I'm at in the microphone. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool stuff. I've been playing with it today. It's impressive. And so we have that. The other thing that's impressive, we have there's some static. Is that on the YouTube or is that on the live radio? Only when I'm talking. Yeah, of course. But is that so Sentinel, is that actually on the YouTube channel you're hearing that, or is that on the radio side, the Spreaker? Oh, that's weird. Let me see what's going on there. That is weird because we never really had that issue with the YouTube. YouTube's always been reliable. Hey, Kim. Hey, 1990 Sunbird 1990. Welcome. I'm using you guys today as our audio check. We actually just installed a new piece of equipment It is on YouTube. Okay. So let's do this. It is really staticky. Oh, that might be the reason. How about now? How about now? I'm using you guys as my test team, our audio test team, as we deploy this new codec. I don't have it, which is really weird because I don't have it hooked into YouTube. I'm using the same signals or the same codec that we were using for YouTube. Still there. Let's do this. All right. There is always, I'm trying to think how we could do this. Only static on YouTube. What can we do here? What can we do? So what it's doing is, all right, so this is what I'm going to do because we need to get this resolved before we get our special guest because I don't want any other issues. So I'm going to drop. And then I'm going to bring the sound back up. You guys let me know if that cleared it up. Let me know. That might have cleared it up. Is it still squeaky? You guys let me know. You guys out there in YouTube land. If that cleared it up. Check 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3. Hey, this is how we do it here. You want to talk about audience participation? Sound good still? All right. So it was that was weird. I've never had that piece of equipment ever has never failed me. Never ends. All right. Good now. Hey, but you guys, please let me know. It's very important. Like I said, we started a new piece of equipment on the radio side. Everything should be level, no matter how close I get to the mic. Now, unfortunately, we don't have that hooked into the YouTube side yet. We will this weekend, though. It's going to rewire some cable. We're moving into the 22nd century. And that is right. So, like I said, we got to clear the road, guys. We have a very special guest who's going to be joining. All of our guests are great. Really. I've always said that what makes a great show is our great guests. It's not me. I just make sure that we don't hit the rocks. And I kind of control the board. That's all I do. But we got joining us at the bottom of the hour, Dr. Michael Heiser. Now, I don't know if you guys know who Dr. Michael Heiser is, but he had a little spat with Zacharias Sitchin. That's right. So we're going to have him in it. I really love getting these scientists, these individuals who have spent all of their lives studying the things that we are fascinated by, and getting them on the show and hearing the other side. That is so important that we get to hear the other side. Let me back away from the microphone just a little bit. We're a little hot there. That's the other thing too with this piece of software is it kind of lets me know that I am yelling inside the thing, but it doesn't let it get out, which is really, really cool. The other thing too I noticed is that I got to get a new chair. I got to get a new chair because we are definitely picking up a lot of things, a little bit more sensitive than it was before. But like I said, Dr. Michael Heiser is going to be joining us, and that is going to be cool. He's one of those guys, I listened to him on Art Bell. I remember the great debate, as they would say. We'll talk about that. Because you got to remember when he was writing his doctoral thesis, if I remember correctly, during that time, and he got on a nationally syndicated show and just, I don't want to say blew up, but he debated. He debated, and the thing about debate is that you can walk away. There is no winner or loser. Well, in some cases there are, but you can walk away with your own opinion, and that's exactly what that show was all about. And I know that he caught a lot of flack because people have a hard time with the truth. They really do. And I don't want to say what he's saying is the truth, but they don't like, I want to say, counter opinion. But that's part of intelligence, is to, as a scientist, as a engineer, that is a part of our job, is to not only come up with hypotheses and methods of testing, but also it's very important that we try to debunk our own work. And so, enough of that. Let's get on with the news. Let's get on with what you guys are here, and we'll bring on the good doctor here at the bottom of the hour. If you are joining us for the first time on YouTube, make sure you do that ever most important thing, and that's push the subscribe button. That's right. It's over there on my right. Yeah. Look at the screen and it's reversed. Click on that. That will tell you when we have new shows coming, and we always have a new show every weeknight from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but that will let you know. The other thing too is if you are on Facebook, make sure that you follow us there at Facebook. And welcome 1990 Sunbird 1990. Welcome. Glad to have you. I hope we live up to your expectations. You know, that's the one thing about this show that we will always do. We will always make it personable. We will always recognize our listeners. And we're doing something really cool over the weekend. Can't let it out of the bag. We're going to announce it on Monday. But it's a way of recognizing our listeners, our devoted listeners. I know that you guys have been asking about phone lines and all of that stuff, and whoa, we want to call in. I wasn't really happy with the quality of the audio on the phone line, so we're actually adding 4 more Skype machines. So you can call in on Skype. You can download Skype, put it on your phone, put it on your computer, do whatever, but we're going to drop the phone hybrid. That's old technology, old days. Even though I wrote that software and developed a lot of that hybrid software, it's like the typewriter. You got to move on. Throw it away, move on. So we're going over to a Skype-based system, which is going to be really cool. The other thing, too, is that we're also going to integrate with Google Hangouts. So those of you that are on Google, we can do that as well. But come Monday, it's already coded. It's being tested right now. It is our little gerbils are in the factory with their little lab coats on, and they're running around in little hamster wheels, testing everything. And we should have that released. And it's going to be something for our guests only. For our listeners. The other thing, too, is that we are going to implement a membership program. Now, don't. The streams will always be free. We will never, ever, ever charge for the streams and the refeeds. Never. The reason being is that the cost of me to do that for you guys is so minimal. So it's no big deal. But I will tell you that we are going to do a membership-like program. What that is going to do is that I've talked to several of our guests, and they are going to help us put together a weekly newsletter. So what it is, it's going to be a membership. With the membership, it's called our Midnight Listeners. with the membership, I can tell you this, is that you will get a weekly newsletter. You will, written by myself and also our guests, that will come out every week. The other thing is that you will get access to not only me, but also to our guests. How cool is that? So if there's a question that you have for a guest, you can message them through this system and they will get back to you. This is something that the guests have agreed to do. They will definitely do this. The other thing as part of being a member too is as we have giveaways and different things like that, you will obviously be included on those. And our first giveaway is our custom t-shirt, the Midnight Ocean. We're waiting for our first 100 Midnight listeners to join. But then you will also get a Midnight listener t-shirt. So that's pretty cool. The other thing that we're implementing as part of that system is a way for you to help spread the word about us, and you get paid for it. That's right. It's an affiliate program. It's a penny a click. We're going to pay you a penny a click. So you can, if you tell friends you're going to get your affiliate, you're going to tell them about us, they're going to log in, we're going to pay you a penny for every click. For every person that you get to sign up. I mean, there's a lot of things that we're doing. For every person you get to sign up. I don't want to sound like multi-level marketing here. I'm not soliciting you guys for money. But it's a way of growing our show and to share the growth with you guys. The other thing too, as a member, we as a Midnight Listener member, that will allow you then to talk directly to our guests during the show. That's right. We were thinking about that, not to allow just anybody to do it. I think it, so for you to call in, now of course you can ask questions and chat and do all that. But if you want to talk directly to one of our guests during the show, you have to be a Midnight Listener to do that. So there's a lot of cool things coming down the pipe, and we are excited about it here at the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. I'm really digging this technology over here. It's gonna be, I need to keep my eyes on the road ahead. I will definitely. No, hold on. What's the Skype name? Sunburn or Sunbird? You become a listener, you'll get the Skype name, so you can Skype in. Patience, and everything. But yeah, I need to stay over here because I got this meter. This thing is like a starship. Watching this spectrum analyzer go up and down and adjust the volumes automatically. It's incredible. It is pretty cool stuff, pretty cool technology that we have. Talking about technology, let's get back to the social media. One of the other things too is the MN Ocean. I have subscribed to a service that allows me to peruse various paranormal websites all at once. And I pick out, I don't know if you guys have been watching this, but if you notice, you'll see tweets from us. And I will pick out stories that I think are relevant or cool stories. And these are stories that we'll also talk about that, during the show as well. So I think we've done all of our housekeeping for tonight. Let's get into the paranormal news. I don't know if you guys know this, but over in Birmingham, there are these bizarre lights that are being spotted in the cloud. And it's pretty impressive. If you go to the birminghammail.co.uk and you read those, you will see that these lights, I mean, it's almost like these are missile tests. It's really, I'm over here in the Gulf side, but we have seen on the Atlantic side when they shoot up one of the SpaceX rockets. It almost looks like that. Like these are rockets being shot up in the air. Makes you wonder. I have to watch that because I think that clearly, I'm looking at the story there at birminghammail.co.uk, and I am clearly, it looks just like what we would see here on as a SpaceX, but much smaller. Much smaller. It's almost, I would almost say that it might be like a Stinger. I don't know. Hopefully there's nothing going on there. Then Spooky Redford's top 5 most haunted buildings. This actually comes from redfordtimes.co.uk. So if you're over in the UK, over in Retfords, they have had a contest and they've come up with the top 5 haunted buildings. So you have to check that out if you ever have the opportunity to travel to the UK, and if you're in Retford. Not Redford, not Robert Redford, but Retford, R-E-T-F-O-R-D. You know, this is one of those things. How do you say? I've always said, you guys know that, well, the SS Minnow has been beached. It's getting new engines. It's being reworked because of the hurricane. And I'll be truthful with you. I think this is very important. I think it lends to credibility. But we take people out on charters where we fish during the day, so don't think it's just, UFO hunting. But we fish, and we fish at night and everything, and then we pull out the infrared goggles and we look straight up. And we look for UFOs at night. Now, I have said this, and I'll say this again. People are highly suggestive. I can make you see a UFO if I wanted to. I've done it. And then, of course, I told the person after the fact. And I've told people before I've done it, where I was able to convince them that what they were seeing was a UFO. That just goes to show you that people want to believe. And even more so, especially when you pay for a charter, right? So I tell people, don't tell people you're looking for UFOs. Tell them you're going fishing. We're going fishing. What we're fishing for is a different story. Because what happens is when you spend the money to go look for UFOs, you want, in your heart, you want to get value for your money. That's this human nature. And so you are even more susceptible to my influences and those. And that goes to the story of this here. In Greece, apparently, the face of Satan has appeared in clouds. You've seen those pictures. I've seen them too. Fires, all that stuff where the face of Satan or some demonic force comes. Sometimes we just want to see. We want to believe. And as we spoke with our good friend Lloyd Auerbach on Monday, we don't really see anything. It is your mind's interpretation. It is definitely your mind's interpretation. That is what sight is. So we do want to believe. So it's important too that I have to remember that, because I want to believe in the Anunnaki and the Nephilim and all of those things. But we're going to talk with Dr. Michael Heiser when we get back from the break, and I'm sure he's going to blow that world up for me. But it's okay. It's okay. I'm good with it. It's good to hear opposing views. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. But you're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. Join us here every weeknight from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
Yes, this is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and a podcast. My name is Jeff Norton. I am your host here. Join me every weeknight from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are trying to get Dr. Michael Heiser on the Skype line. It happens. Sometimes we have these issues. So, good doctor, if you are listening to the show, can you please call me at the number that we provided? Or the, that is weird. So let me take care of a little business here. Hold on for a second, guys. This is the fun thing about live radio. We always have this. And so you guys know that it is a one-man show. So I am trying to send him an email. I know he's on. I can see him, but it is really weird. It is completely blocking me from calling him. Probably some privacy setting. So we'll have him call me. We'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, we will get these things worked out. I promise you, we do have Dr. Michael Heiser is trying to reach us. We are talking through the Gmail. Maybe I ought to set that up. Let's see here if we can get him to call into us. See how that works. Gotta love technology. Now see, these are the things that make me go, maybe we need to go back to the phone system. All this technology, as I was sitting here going, oh yeah, it's awesome. Good stuff. Nope, it is definitely failing when he calls. All right, so enough of that. We'll see if he can call into us. Yes, I am definitely multitasking. Yes. Welcome, Scott Schaller. Welcome to the show. We are waiting for our guest to join us. This is live. I love it. Gotta love it. I remember one time we had, we'll talk about shows, guests and stuff. We had a guest. I know that Sentinel was on the show. We had a very special guest. She was the lead, Jennifer Batten. She was the lead of the Michael Jackson. She was the lead guitar player for the Bad Tour with Michael. And it was funny because she completely forgot what time the show started. Now, I know that Michael's here because I'm getting emails from him. So that is really, try calling you, I think. But it just rang without pickup. Huh. Yeah, so maybe they don't want us, Mr. Dr. Heiser. Maybe they don't want us to talk to each other. That is incredible. Let me send you the friend request, and maybe you have to approve it. Let me see here too. I will go into my, see, as we go here and talk about Skype, call from anyone, automatically receive it. All right. Yeah, I don't want. All right. So let's see if this works. So I think what it is in the privacy settings. We will figure it out. In the privacy settings, there is a allow calls from anyone. There we go. There we go. Technology.
Hello, this is Jeff.
So there we go. Miss Dr. Heiser's with us. So let me tell you guys a little bit for those that don't know our guest. Dr. Mike Heiser earned his PhD in Hebrew, Bible, and Semitic languages at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Before joining the UW-Madison, Mike earned an MA in ancient history from the University of Pennsylvania. Major fields were ancient Israel and Egyptology. And another MA from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Hebrew Studies. He also attended Dallas Theological Seminary. Mike's undergraduate degree is from Bob Jones University, but he also attended Bible college for 3 years. So once again, if you want to, I've always said, if you want to learn the Bible, learn from an expert. Learn from a gentleman with the street credentials as Dr. Michael Heiser. Hey, doctor, how are you?
I'm pretty good.
Technology.
I'm also getting an echo of everything I say.
Oh, weird.
So
Why
I'll
is that? Hold
try
on.
to not get confused.
That is weird. That's actually I've heard about that in Skype. I can tell you that I'm not refeeding back to you because I just checked it. So
I'm
that
not
is
smart enough to know what that means.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's what they call mixed minded. So what happens is that you're talking to me and it's going out through all sorts of different, through the YouTube and all of those things. But what happens is that I have to strip your audio out or you're going to hear yourself. Exactly. And you're going to get an echo. So, and I can tell you that I have stripped you out, so I'm not refeeding you back to yourself. So that's not coming from me, which is really bizarre, though. Huh.
Yeah,
Now
I've not had this happen before. And I've
Oh, really?
Skype dozens of times, yeah.
Huh. Let me hold on 1 second here. Let me look at something. Computer's down.
Odds are I'm doing something wrong.
No, it's
Anyway,
not you.
now the echo's gone. Can
Is
you
it?
still hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
You know, we're technology challenged.
I guess. Well, you have no idea. You have no idea.
Well, that makes me feel good, actually, because I am at awe with you and what you do. So it's good to know that you do have a chink in your armor.
Yeah, you're too easily impressed then.
Oh, come on. I mean, anybody that can go toe to toe with Zacro Sitchin is a hero, and everything. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So Michael, for those that don't know you, and by the way, are you teaching at University of Wisconsin still, or no? Are you somewhere?
No, that ended when I graduated.
Okay.
So I've been in the Northwest since 2004 at Logos Bible Software, which now they had a corporate name change. It goes by Faith Life now, makers of Logos Bible Software. So I'm sure there was some corporate reason to do that. But I've been there. My title now is Scholar in Residence, which I helped to make up. They let us sort of make up our own titles here. But I do ancient language database. I write lots of reference content. I write for the magazine. I do a lot of video teaching that, the company creates courses out of. Sure. All sorts of stuff like that. I still teach as a professor online actually in 3 different schools. But the Green Campus, I've done a little bit of adjuncting here at the local university. Sure. Since moving here, but not full time since 2004.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the other thing too, because I'm just trying, because we have a lot of listeners, believe it or not. We're one of the unique things about our show is that we are bringing over a lot of listeners who have never been really exposed to the paranormal. Mm-hmm. It's amazing when you look at the demographics of our show. I mean, these are when I mention Art Bell, they're like, who? And
that is surprising.
It is. It's awesome though, because we're reaching in, and I've always said my goal was to bring non-mainstream ideas to the mainstream. And so we're definitely doing that. So a lot of people don't know your history, and that's awesome, because we got kind of like a fresh slate here. But I want our listeners to kind of understand your depth and breadth of knowledge when it comes to the Bible, and also archaeology and everything. How many languages do you speak, and what are the types of languages and that you do your research in?
Well, I only speak English. When you're in Semitic studies, they're all dead languages. So, that's where the emphasis is. Sure. I've probably taken coursework in a dozen or so, dead languages. Hebrew, of course, is a living language, but biblical Hebrew isn't. Nobody speaks biblical Hebrew. It's all modern Hebrew.
Yeah.
There's no word for car and toilet in the Bible, in the modern sense, that sort of thing. But Aramaic and, Ugaritic, Syriac, that sort of, I have a couple of years of hieroglyphs, that sort of thing. That's what you have to get into. Ugaritic, which is alphabetic cuneiform, in what used to be ancient Syria. Yeah. But all that sort of stuff, you have to more or less do the dead language boot camp when you're in Hebrew Bible and Semitic studies.
Okay. And I think it's important, but now this is a question you can probably answer. I've always wanted to know this, because I've always been fascinated with hieroglyphs and all that. How do we know that when we read a hieroglyph, or when you, as a scientist, I don't read it. I trust that, I read the books that you guys write. How do we know that what you guys are reading is actually what the intended meaning? Was there like a codex that was left behind or something that?
Well, like in the case of hieroglyphs, the hieroglyphs were cracked through the use of a trilingual text, the Rosetta Stone.
Okay.
Where you had Greek, which was the known language, then you had hieroglyphs, and then you had Demotic, which is another form of Egyptian. So the real point of correlation was Greek and the Egyptian, and Champollion, the Frenchman who, gets credited for cracking hieroglyphs. He began with the intuition, certain intuitions. This is always the way it happens, that the hieroglyphs inside of circles, inside of rings, were proper names and probably pharaohs. And he was correct in that. And so that, led him to, crack open the letter equivalent or the sound equivalent of a number of hieroglyphs. And that's, sort of where it started. But, once people figured out that, okay, some of these are an alphabet and a lot of them aren't. And again, that was through trial and error. Mm-hmm. There was that discovery. There's the discovery of more, bilingual texts and whatnot. So eventually, they're able to, since they knew what the Greek portion said, of the Rosetta Stone, they could work their way through the hieroglyphic portion and get an alphabet, get what are called biliterals and triliterals. Those are hieroglyphs that don't represent just one sound, but either two or three, mashed together. Coptic, which was the effort to use the Greek alphabet in later antiquity to represent hieroglyphs, was also helpful, because the Greeks were trying to do this. They had to add a few letters to represent sounds that were present in Egyptian but not in Greek. But those languages were known, and so all of that stuff helped scholars to figure out what was the alphabet, what wasn't, what did double duty, all that sort of thing. And then from that point, it's just a matter of observing patterns so you can get grammar, like, endings on verbs, endings on nouns, that sort of thing. Anybody who's had German or Spanish or French, inflected languages, knows that you have a root form and then stuff gets added to the front or the end. That something happens to the root form to express a verb tense, or if it's a noun, a singular or a plural. So it's a lot of process by elimination. But we're well over we're 200 years into Egyptian. So Egyptian's really a well-known language, and all the languages of the ancient Near East are really well known. I mean, they're not perfectly known. There are words that people still scratch their head, about, because, it only occurs in one text, it doesn't occur anywhere else. So what might that be? And it might not have a clear relative in another Semitic language that's known better. So it's not perfect, but it's really, really good.
Yeah, ancient slang.
What they could do.
So,
yeah,
you come across
ancient and a lot
slang.
of people, like you mentioned, Sitchin. This is the thing they don't get, they don't understand. The Sumerians, created this idea of using, a stylus to create little wedges on clay tablets to represent their spoken language. They invented cuneiform. The Akkadians, who came after them, it's a different civilization, a different part of the world, a different city-state that postdates. There's some overlap, but postdates the Sumerian civilization. They looked at that and they thought, that's a great idea. We're going to adopt their script, the making of the wedges, and we're going to use that for our language. And so that's what they did. And in the process, so that Sumerian wouldn't be lost, Akkadian scribes made what are called today lexical lists. They're essentially bilingual dictionaries. Mm-hmm. Where they'd put the Sumerian on one side and then in their own language on the other side, so that you could see, scribes could learn the equivalents. And again, so Sumerian, in terms of a written language, wouldn't be lost. Well, when people like Zechariah Sitchin come along and say this word means that, and basically he's just making a lot of stuff up, because you can see from the lexical lists, the lists that the scribes themselves made to see what a word means and what a word doesn't mean. So my money is on the Akkadian scribe, not a journalist from Israel or wherever he was from, or New York. There are just so many problems with the kinds of claims that Sitchin makes and his handling of the data.
Yeah.
I didn't know who he was when I got thrust into all this when I skipped the first year of my dissertation and decided to write a novel, The Facade.
Yeah.
And then I got, people were asking me about Zechariah Sitchin. Okay, I've got to find out who this guy is, and I did. And at first I thought, wow, a kindred spirit, ancient languages and interested in this stuff. And then I read The 12th Planet and basically was appalled.
Yeah.
And that the rest, as they say, I guess, is history. But, it's not easy to compare ancient material and what the scribes say this word or this character means and what Sitchin says. You can do that, but like, who does that? Guys like me, geeks in graduate school that just maybe don't, have enough of a social life or whatever. We're the ones who do that.
Yeah.
And the people who are buying 12th Planet, they're not going to go out and learn the languages so they can critique the guy or see if he's correct. That's how a lot of this whole ancient astronaut enterprise works. I really think that a lot of people who are into it, who promote it, literally sit there and think, nobody's going to look this up.
No one's going to look at it. Well, I'll tell you, I'm a smart guy. See, I'm not going to look it up. I'm going to find you. And I'm going to say, all right, you tell me. Because I am actually reading The 12th Planet right now. I got it the other day. Yeah. Well, it's one of those things for me. I treat it all like fiction anyways.
Well, then it'll be entertaining,
Yeah.
and you'll probably enjoy it.
Yeah, to me, it's all fiction, because you don't know. I mean, you can make a lot of assumptions. I mean, we all know. I can sit there and tell you how grass is made, but that doesn't necessarily mean I know how grass is made. Mm-hmm. But I can throw enough fancy words at you and well, probably not you, but other people, and make them believe. I mean, I don't know if you heard right before I came on, we do these UFO where we go out fishing, and I have a charter boat, so we'll go out fishing, and then we go look for UFOs. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I can convince you almost 80-90% of the time that you saw a UFO when I know darn well you didn't. And after I do that, I tell them, it's like, look, I just want to tell you that's the power of persuasion.
Yeah.
Because people want to believe, and especially when you spend money. And I tell people, I'm like, do not tell people that you're coming out looking for UFOs. Because what happens is, in your mind, you told all your friends that you spent money on a charter boat. And you got to come back. You better have seen
something.
Yeah, you better seen something. Exactly. Instead, tell them you're going to go fishing.
I'm not impressed with the fish. I want to hear the story.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is that and I know that. I know people want to believe so much.
I have a friend who teaches New Testament at a seminary in Florida, and he went through seminary and graduate school as a street performer, believe it or not. He's a magician. He's actually been on Nickelodeon years ago. He's like on the old Nickelodeon reruns. But he's a mentalist. One of the things he does is a mentalist, And he'll tell me, he goes, look, I go to these conferences, and I do what I do, mentalists do, and I know how to get information out of people without them really telling me anything. Yeah. And he goes, at the end of it, I tell him, look, I just want you to know I'm not psychic. This is a trick. This is, some magicians focus in this area, and this is what I'm doing to you. There are certain techniques, to get information from people without them knowing it, but I'm not psychic. And he goes, they won't believe me.
Yeah.
They think at that point I'm lying.
Yeah. Yeah, they think, yeah, exactly. They're like, oh.
And he tries to tell him, look, really, I am not psychic. I don't have a psychic bone in my body, but I know how to do this thing. It's a particular skill. Yeah. And they just won't believe him.
Well, I mean, there's definitely things that we do not know about, and we're still learning as a species and everything. But I tend to
we're far from omniscient.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tend to lean towards your side. I had Lloyd Auerbach on the show on Monday, and he's very scientific as well. He applies the scientific principles to his research and the things that he does in parapsychology, and tries to measure it, and it was interesting talking to him, because I asked him flat out, I said, do you believe in this? And he's like, yeah, I do, but that doesn't mean I believe everything.
Right.
And I think that's fair.
He wants to be data driven.
Yeah. That's fair.
And that's honorable. I just started a podcast. We're 3 episodes in. We're actually going to record our 4th one next week. Wow. But it's me, and we have like 3 or 4 other co-hosts. And the podcast is called Peer Normal. So Peera, and then normal, Peer Normal. And the little niche is that every episode I will select 2 or 3 readings, and we only talk about peer-reviewed material.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize, like you were just mentioning with your friend there, that there are real scientists in real labs with real grant funding.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, they do real research on all of these things that we consider paranormal, and it gets put through the peer review process, and it gets published in journals.
Yeah.
Scholarly journals. And a lot of people don't even know what scholarly journals are, because they don't post their content on the internet. You have to, these are things libraries get. You have to have access to databases and all this kind of stuff.
Hey, doctor, I don't mean to cut you off there, but I have to. We actually blew through a stop there, a hard stop for a break. So let's take a 4-minute break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the new podcast and the peer review things that you guys are doing. But
Gotcha.
yep. And then remember, please go on mute because we switched over. I don't have control over you, over your Skype, over the internet. So only on the radio. So you're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and a podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. We are talking with our very special guest, Dr. Michael Heiser. And when we get back, we're going to be talking about his new podcast called Peer Review.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
That is right, Andrew. This is the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast. I noticed that we have some new listeners in the chat room. Well, welcome, everybody, in the chat room there on YouTube. You can join us live. YouTube, we actually simulfeed this to YouTube, and we are on, of course, Spreaker and Shoutcast and all of those, and iTunes. Next week is going to be pretty cool. We're going to be going out to Vimeo and some other video, Twitch, Facebook Live. We're going to be simulcasting to Facebook as well. So I'd just like to say welcome to all of you new listeners. We're growing. We're adding listeners every day, and it's amazing. It's wonderful. And if you are listening or stopping by for the first time, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button in YouTube. That helps us out tremendously as we grow and get the message out. And also, if you are on Facebook, follow us at The Midnight Ocean. And that is enough of the self-promotion. We have our very special guest, Dr. Michael Heiser. Doctor, sorry about interrupting you during that. I in the lull of you getting the echo, I actually turned the computer down thinking that it was you. And I got tones in my ear saying break, 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 break,
Right.
break. It's one of those things where I don't have a red phone yet at my desk, but I do have guys in my headset that talk to me.
I was gonna say, or someone standing next to you with a blunt object. I guess.
Not yet. Those days are coming though, but we do have one station that does pick us up. And it's a small AM station, and so their network guy is talking to me through the telos. So it's like break. So I do apologize for missing that cue, and more importantly, I do apologize for interrupting you. So you have a new podcast. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, it's peeranormal.com. So it's PEERA NORMAL, peeranormal.com. And again, the whole emphasis is to expose listeners to the peer-reviewed research on paranormal topics. Because again, a lot of people don't realize that there are real scientists and real labs doing real research. And what we do is the host, there's 3 or 4 of us, and we'll read a couple of peer-reviewed articles. We decide on a topic, and then we meet and we talk about what we read. What were they trying to accomplish? What did they discover? What do they think still needs to be done? What are the limitations of what they found? But we just thought it was high time to expose people to real research that gets done on all these subjects, because it's interesting, but you never really know, is the guy that's telling me about this, does he know what he's doing with this or that, or is he just sort of repeating it 3 or 4 layers down the road? So hopefully it'll kind of raise the bar, of the discussion a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, I was talking with Lloyd on our show on Monday. I am a computer guy. I mean, that's what I do. I'm a computer science, and we're gonna do a study. I already told them I'd volunteer my service where we'll hang Gauss meters on fishing line throughout, and we'll try to track something energy. I'm learning not to assume that don't call it a go, but we're going to track energy, or try to track energy moving through a room, and then do that, and then display it in a 3D model. And this isn't wind or anything, but with these little Gauss meters, these hanging from the strings at 6 inches apart, and trying to then correlate the data, gather the data. That's my expertise. I'm a big data guy.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, whoever's going to do the experiment gives you the best set of instructions possible. It's really amazing when you read peer-reviewed stuff. And again, a lot of this that we're reading for Peeranormal is in the hard sciences or something like that. I mean, I'm a humanities guy, so it's a little bit far afield for me, even though I'm interested in lots of the topics. But just the stuff that they have to go through, because they know it's going to be peer-reviewed. Just every little facet of their experiment, what they're doing, why they're doing it this way and not another way. How they're safeguarding against this, that, and the other thing, because, your peer reviewers, that's the first thing they're going to ask. They're going to try to pick apart your methodology and all that. It's really interesting.
Yeah. And that, like I said, that's what impressed me with Lloyd is he was, he's science. There's no doubt about it.
He has been through that mill. He just knows, again, how to think forward into all the things that might be interfering or might give you a false result. Yeah.
Well, he told us about a house that was, they got in there, everybody was sick and ill, and this house was built on a land, the landfill was depositing methane gas into their house. They had and then that was igniting, and when that was igniting, it was making these orbs in space, and then they measured the window wells, and the doors were off in such a way that it gave you a sense of euphoria when you walked in the rooms. And I mean, it was amazing, and it's
fascinating.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yep. And
unless you're in the hard sciences, you would never think about stuff like that.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's important, like with you, because let's face it, when you debated, when art kind of put you in and for those that don't know, let's kind of back up. You're a grad student. You're still writing your dissertation, correct?
Yeah. The way that I sort of got sucked into this vortex, was I had passed my PhD exams and I was kind of burned out and because I was working full time, going through grad school, and so I just needed a break. So one of my jobs was I worked third shift security, which gave me a lot of time to do homework. But I thought, I'm going to take a year off and write a novel. I'd always wanted to do it, and I had a pretty good command of ancient texts, and I had a lot of exposure to paranormal stuff. UFOs is a special interest of mine. So it's like, well, let's just throw all that in a blender and kind of see what comes out. And I'm going to do that for a year. And so I did. And, long story short, I produced this manuscript and this book, and I had a friend who listened to Coast as well. I always listen to it at night. And he said, well, you should try to go on the Art Bell show. We all kind of laughed, it's going to take like 6 months to penetrate this phalanx, around Art Bell.
Yeah.
So I said, well, if you want to pretend to be a publicist, go ahead. It'll be fun. And literally the next day, I came home from school, and my wife greeted me at the door, and she's like, you're not going to believe who I just got off the phone with. It was Art Bell. And I'm like, come on. So then I called him back, and sure enough, it's Art. I mean, I know the voice.
Yeah, yeah.
And got on the show. And then once I was on the show a couple times, and, the whole Sitchin thing kind of developed. Art asked if I would debate Sitchin on his show. And I said, well, sure. But I added, like, this is never going to happen.
Yeah.
Because Sitchin has nothing to gain. I mean, he's no dummy. He's not going to take risks like this. What would be the point for him to do that? But I said, sure, why not? And so we never had a debate. The request to debate from coast to coast lasted well over 10 years until Sitchin passed away. And that's okay. I went back to my dissertation. I had a grad program to finish, but that kind of sort of put me on the map, and I've enjoyed the experience too. I want to contribute something here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, and I think it's very important. Like you said, is that he never took you up on the debate, and it was offered. I remember that show. I remember a couple times.
That's like ancient history.
Yeah, I do. Well, I was the same boat. I was going to college, learning computer sciences. I can't tell you how many pieces of software I've written, listening to Art Bell, listening to you, and Mel, and stories of Mel Hull as I was writing code.
Yeah, well, I wrote my whole dissertation listening to Coast to Coast.
Well, I remember you talking about as you were a security guard and everything, and how you would listen to him, and I was laughing because I was the same way. I mean, I remember going into the office. I just started my first business writing, being a software app dev developer, and Art Bell's what kept me awake. That and Sundrop. In the South, we had a drink called Sundrop. And that was what listening to Art, and so I remember that, and it's it's fascinating to see how people, I guess, develop or how they grow. And I will have to say, I heard you were on Art's show when he came back, right?
Yeah,
was that? Yeah,
I was. He only had 12, 15 shows. But yeah, I was able to get on, which was a thrill. For me, it's like, I just, you kind of miss, the voice.
Yes.
I mean, I think George does a good job, and I'm well treated at Coast to Coast. I mean, I've been on there like
Yeah.
30 times now. But there's something nostalgic,
Yes.
about art, and so I was thrilled to get back on.
Yeah. And to be one of the first ones that he called. I mean,
Sure, yeah.
that's the honor right there, and that tells you, that there's a lot there. The fact that you were one of the first ones, in that group, because I know that
Yeah,
he brought
I was real
Michio
happy.
Kaku back, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, he's been a really good, I want to say mentor. A lot of people don't realize. I mean, art is hard to get to,
Hmm.
but once you get to him, and you have to listen because he will do in his shows, he will give out little messages to those people that are asking, and it's amazing, But yeah, just I miss him, I do, and when he left the airwaves, that was what was this last time. That was what motivated me to say, hey, look, someone's got to go forward with this, and
Carry the torch.
carry
kind
the
of thing,
torch.
yeah.
And it's a huge torch to carry, and everything. But hopefully, because my thing is I love the crazy, the Area 51 guy flying in his airplane.
You're right. I remember that.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I was like, and then I tell my guests, or
And
I
the
tell
guy
my
who
listeners,
shot Bigfoot and buried him,
that's right, the guy that shot Big, and he has an Art to this day says he doesn't know where he's at, but but then it's funny because he winks kind of in the background, saying, "Yeah, I have the map," but I don't know where it's. But those are the good old days. The time travel, the Montauk Project, and all of the classic art bell, and that's what I'm trying to bring back. The crazy. It's funny because I tell our guests that we're pretty tame compared to some of the ones that we're going to be bringing on here in the near future, and it's just
Well, if you really think about it, I mean, art has sort of spawned a whole, I don't want to call it a cottage industry, but maybe you could call it a cottage industry where there's a lot of people who really, enjoyed it so much listening to it that, like you, it's like, well, I'm going to try to do something here, why not? Give it a whack and give it a whirl and just kind of see how it goes. And, he's the impetus and the catalyst, for a lot of that stuff.
He is. Yeah. I remember I met him one time. I was at the Hall of Fame when he was inducted in Chicago.
Oh, wow.
And I was down there in Chicago, and I heard that he was coming, and I just had to go, and everything. And it was never got in the same room with him. It's kind of like he walked by, and which is crazy because I've sat in the same room with presidents and stuff, and it's like, yeah, whatever. I'm more interested in Art Bell.
That reminds me. I grew up as I can't say I'm any longer a Dallas Cowboys fan, but as a youngster, I was a Cowboys fan, and in the '70s. And I remember I spent a year at Dallas Seminary, and Tom Landry was on the board.
Oh, wow.
And so every year at the end of the year, they'd have commencement, and the board would always be there. They'd have a board meeting right before there, and then they'd all sort of meet out on the lawn in the center of the campus. And it's like, a lot of other famous people in terms of like biblical stuff, and it's like, I don't care about any of you people. I want to see Tom Landry.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he's wearing the hat. It just that was it. So I understand completely. You just want to see that person, that you've admired at a distance for so long.
Exactly. And I hope we do him justice. Like I said, I've gotten messages. I know his next door neighbor through another association, and so I know he gets messages. I use her. She's my little courier and stuff. But I hope his health is better. He's been sick and everything. Let's get back to now. I'm just going to start asking. All right, you're the biblical scholar. There's a couple questions that have always bugged me, and I've heard these tales. Number one, Virgin Mary. I've been told that in the Bible, the term virgin, there's no such term.
Oh my. Well, that's kind of sad.
Okay. I mean, well, okay. So let's is there, because everybody says no, there's no way that there was a virgin birth, because everybody misinterprets the word that they use for virgin. There's no Hebrew name. There's no Hebrew virgin. There's no word for virgin in the Hebrew language. So you just basically blew that one up. Thank you.
Well, that I'll tell you where it comes from.
Sure.
In Isaiah 7:14, okay? That's the key passage. We have, behold, a virgin shall conceive, so on. So anybody who's heard Handel's Messiah, sort of knows this verse. The Hebrew term there that's translated virgin in most translations is alma. Now, alma is a term that, more broadly means a woman of marriageable age. Okay? There is another term, Betula, which is the more technical term for virgin. In other words, someone who has never had sexual intercourse. Okay. And so people say, well, because Isaiah uses Alma and doesn't use Betula, that must mean that there's no virgin birth in Isaiah 7. The other issue is that if you actually read through Isaiah 7, the sign that is given to the king, it's, Ahaz, the king. This is the sign for him. The sign actually isn't the woman. The sign is the child. If you actually read through the passage, and, behold, a virgin shall conceive and shall bear a son. His name shall be called Immanuel, God with us, or God is with us, so on and so forth. So you read through that, and this is supposed to comfort the king of Judah, Ahaz. And if you keep reading past verse 14, it says that the child, by the time the child is able to eat solid food, curds and honey and all that kind of stuff, the problem that the king was facing, which was two enemies to the north, will be over and done with. So the prophecy is actually for King Ahaz and was actually fulfilled long before we ever had, Jesus of Nazareth. This is hundreds and hundreds of years, centuries. And so people are saying, well, Matthew just kind of went crazy, when he quoted Isaiah 7:14 for the virgin birth, because it was already fulfilled. Well, there are a number of misunderstandings about those issues that leads to this notion that the New Testament itself doesn't affirm a virgin birth, and the Old Testament can't lend any credence to it. It goes like this, the short version here. By the way, for your listeners, if they want to go up to my website, they could go to drmsh.com, and in the search field, type Almah, A-L-M-A-H, and you'll get a full article on this. Okay. The problem with saying Almah doesn't mean sexual virgin is that the term is used in passages along with Betula to describe the same woman. So there are occasions where Alma and Betula are synonymous. So you can't say with any coherence that Alma cannot mean sexual virgin. It can, because it does, in other places. So in terms of the word itself, it's a bogus argument to say that Alma doesn't refer to sexual virgin. In practical terms, women, were they were sheltered. So most almas are going to be virgins just by virtue of the fact of the living circumstances. So this is not unusual. Okay. The other thing about what Matthew is doing, Isaiah 7:14, yes, it was fulfilled in Isaiah's day. But what Matthew is doing, Matthew sees an analogy between the circumstances of Isaiah 7 and the circumstances of Jesus' birth. That's why he strikes the equation, going back to Isaiah 7. The New Testament is very clear that Mary was a virgin, both in terms of the genealogies and the language used there. And it says very clearly that Joseph did not know, Mary until after Jesus was born. To know a woman in the Old Testament, like in Genesis 4, a few other places, is euphemistic language for sexual, encounter. So it's very clear, in the New Testament and going back to the Old, It's kind of a non-argument. If you don't like the virgin birth, just say you don't like it. You
Yeah.
know, don't make the text argue against a thing that the
Sure.
text certainly can say.
Sure. Okay. That was okay. I thank you. I mean, that was something that's been bugging me for a while, and it's not one of those questions that you go out. Now I know I'll just go to your site or have you
Yeah,
on as a
just
guest.
go
And
up to
ask.
drmsh.com, type in ALMAH, Alma, or you could type in Isaiah 7:14, and you're going to find an article on this that's
Sure.
on my site.
Awesome. Now, the other one that I heard too is that, the concept of hell. I've always heard that, I understand, Dante's Inferno and everything is the true kind of like the precursor to the whole concept of hell. But I was always told that hell in ancient Hebrew was actually the way that translated was basically the garbage dump. And it was kind of like, parents telling kids, if you don't behave, we're going to throw you in the dump. We're going to throw you in hell. Is there such a word, or is there in the Hebrew language in ancient biblical Hebrew?
Well, there's a portion of validity to that, and it's also partly a wives' tale.
Okay.
Um, it, the broader issue is it depends on what term you're thinking. You're probably thinking of Gehenna, which is a term used in the New Testament. It comes from the Hebrew Gehinnom, which is the valley of Hinnom, or the valley of wailing. Gehinnom in the Old Testament was the place where child sacrifices were performed to Molech. And so it became known as this awful place, Now, Gehenna, even though it had this association, Gehenna in the New Testament, a lot of people will say, well, that was the garbage dump, and there was always seemed to be something on fire there,
Yeah.
and that's where this concept comes from. So that really isn't true. For those of you, your listeners who are interested in that, there's a really good post on a blog called the Bible Places blog. And if you put in Bible Places blog and Gehenna, Gehenna, you'll find that post. I also blogged that, a link to that article on my website. So if you put drmsh.com and then type in Gehenna, you should find it as well.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen to be my work. The other term is Sheol, or Sheol, as people who speak English would say it. Sheol is the grave. It's a word for the grave, or the underworld. The place, the realm of the dead. And in the Old Testament, it can be either, well, that's just the afterlife where everybody goes. Okay, the realm of the dead. The hope of the righteous in the Old Testament was that God would remove them from Sheol to be with Him. Otherwise, you're kind of stuck in Sheol. Now, Sheol is never described in the Old Testament as a place of fiery torment. It is described as sort of a cadaverous existence, and Sheol is the underworld, is also populated by it's going to sound bizarre, but the spirits of dead giant clans, the dead giants, the dead
Sure.
Nephilim,
Well,
and the Anakim and the Rephaim.
Let's-
So it wasn't a place you'd want to be.
that's actually a great stopping point, because when we get back, we're going to talk. We're going to take a break. We're hitting that hard stop once again, and when we get back, let's talk about the giants with our very special guest, Dr. Michael S. Heiser, is joining us. And for those that don't know who he is, you Google him. I'm not doing your homework for you. You guys know that. I will not do your homework for you. But we'll take a quick break. We'll get back, and we're going to talk about the giants of the Bible with our very special guest, Dr. Michael Heiser.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network. This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
Nothing like a little bossa nova jazz to wake you up in this Friday evening as we roll on into the twilight. Everything. So, yes, this is the Midnight Ocean radio show and podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. I want to tell everybody, hey, Christy, welcome to the show. Scott, you too. Don't worry, guys. I'm not going to ignore you. Welcome. Glad you guys can join us, and I am very glad that you're enjoying our guest tonight, Dr. Michael Heiser. Join us. Gotta make sure I say that. I think I said his name wrong once or twice. He hasn't corrected me. He's such a gracious guest. But before we get back to him, just doing a little house cleaning here. If you guys are new to us on YouTube, I've noticed that we got quite a few more listeners have joined us in the past few minutes. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. That's important to us. It's how we fund this show. That's how we keep it free for everybody. Free is good. I promise you we will never charge for our shows and such. But enough of that jazz. Let's get back to the matter at hand. Right before we're going on break, Doctor, you were talking about the giants. All right. So now I'm confused. I am completely you have me in a quandary here because, all right, you mentioned the Nephilim and the Anunnaki and, all right.
Yeah, we don't want to conflate those things.
Okay.
We'll let Zechariah Sitchin do that. So.
Well, and that's it. All right. So let's just start. Here we go. In the Bible, in the translation, in the proper translation that you did, do they reference the giants, the Goliaths, the I guess EMIM, the Zeum, the Anunnaki? A whole
bunch of terms for them.
Okay, so they're there in the Bible. You're not denying that.
Oh no, of course not.
Okay.
I mean, it has nothing to do with the Anunnaki. That's a whole that's a whole other dead horse to beat.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's pick the first one. Let's Nephilim.
Pick the first dead horse.
Let's pick the first dead horse, Nephilim. Right. And I know that you have a really great, and there's a site, and I want to give this out. And it couldn't be any clearer than this. I think we all know where you stand on this one. Stitchiniswrong.com.
Yeah, sitchiniswrong.com. Yep.
Sitchiniswrong.com.
Yeah, there's very little ambiguity there.
Yeah. So there's a whole list here. Yeah. I got a whole list of questions for you.
Okay, well, we should finish the thing we were talking about before the break.
Sure.
The whole thing about the underworld. And I mentioned in the Old Testament, it's not this fiery place of torment, but it's still a place you don't want to be.
Sure. Because
there are certain of the terms used for the giant clans that are associated with the underworld. It's a very, this is kind of convoluted, but if you type in the easiest place for your listeners to go, other than getting my book, The Unseen Realm, because I spend 5 chapters on this, is to Google, where do demons come from? Okay, and my name, Heiser, Heiser, and you will find a piece I wrote on a blog that's not mine. It's my company blog, and part of that discussion is that demons, we're never told this explicitly in the Bible, but there are little snippets of the idea, and the idea gets fleshed out by comparing biblical statements with Mesopotamian material and Canaanite material and whatnot. But demons come from, they are the disembodied spirits, the disembodied watcher spirits of the dead Nephilim, the dead giant clans. And that's why again, you have certain passages in the Old Testament that have the Rephaim, which is one of the terms for the giant clans. If you read Deuteronomy 2 and 3, you're going to see that the Rephaim are Anakim. And Anakim are giants, according to Numbers 13, 32, and 33. The Anakim are very tall, and they come, quote, from the Nephilim. Okay, so the book of Numbers associates the Anakim with the Nephilim, and Deuteronomy 2 and 3 associates the Rephaim with the Anakim. And the Rephaim are the ones that you, like a passage like Isaiah 14:9, I'll just read it to you. Sheol beneath is stirred up to meet you when you come. It rouses the Rephaim. A lot of English translations will have something like shades, shadowy beings or whatever. It rouses the Rephaim to greet you, all who were leaders of the earth. It raises from their thrones all who were kings of the nations. So you have these sinister descriptions of the underworld where these guys are there. So the afterlife without a right relationship with the God of the Bible is still a bad place to be in the Old Testament. Now that place gets accrued descriptions, and there's sort of a development of the idea on in what we call the intertestamental period. Scholars refer to it as the Second Temple period, on into the New Testament, where you get some of these other details about the bad afterlife that get become part of the description. But believe it or not, you'll get giant clan language associated with the bad underworld place, and it's because they're disembodied spirits in biblical and Jewish theology are where demons come from. So again, there's a whole set of associations there. Okay. The point to realize is there's no one verse that tells you that. You have to cobble that together, and it's one of the things that I discuss at length in my book, The Unseen Realm, which, by the way, I would recommend people go up to Amazon and read the reviews. It's got almost 300 reviews now. 96% are 4-star or better. It's been very, very well received. Most of those are 5-star. And it's gratifying because what I'm trying to do in that book is take scholarship, peer-reviewed scholarship. That's the dirty little secret of my book. There's nothing in the book that's original to Mike. I'm taking peer-reviewed scholarship on all the weird stuff in the Bible and making it decipherable to people who aren't in graduate school or who aren't studying, for the ministry, just normal people who are interested. And in the religion category, it's a bestseller now. So if you're interested in this stuff and you actually want real peer-reviewed research behind, what you're reading, that's the book. It's unique in that respect. It's been a 15-year project of mine. So if you want more detail, that's the place to go.
And we will also have a link to that from our page from the Midnight Ocean. We'll make sure that we link to all of your books.
Listeners to shows like this will really enjoy it. And again, you have to, for the sake of, I guess at the risk of repetition, I have to repeat this point. People need to realize what this is. Everybody says their book is good. Everybody says, my book will change your life. Everybody, kind of says that. In my case, I actually mean it. Because I went through the process of having all of my thinking changed, in graduate school, when you're forced to read primary texts instead of translations, and you're forced to do this kind of work. And again, what I'm trying to do, there is nothing in this book, even though it's about bizarre stuff like giants and Genesis 6 and, what in the world is, this descent into Hades for Jesus and 1 Peter 3, all the weird stuff, okay? There is nothing in this book that I either haven't already taken to an academic conference, a room full of a couple hundred PhDs, and read papers on, or that I would write a peer-reviewed article on. It's all real peer-reviewed research made decipherable for people. So this is, let's use Art Bell as an illustration here. You listen to the Art Bell show, and you think, man, I wish that the experts would look into this and tell us what they think. That's what this book is. Again, all the weird stuff that you're kind of interested in, everything in here is backed up by peer-reviewed scholarship. And I give you footnotes, sources out the wazoo. Okay, I give you the breadcrumb trail because I don't like the argument from authority. I want people to know where I got everything so that they can track it down and check it out. So if that's what you want, okay, if you want real scholarship, but again, made readable, you don't have to be freaked out by it. I'm not speaking academese in the book. Then you really need to read The Unseen Realm. Go up and read the reviews. Again, I love the ones that say, well, I was a little scared because there's lots of footnotes in here, but holy cow, I could read the thing. That's what I want. It's just, again, that reviews like that are just really gratifying because that's like, okay, that's mission accomplished. That's what I wanted to hear.
You're almost like the Michio Kaku of the Bible.
Well, that's not a bad analogy because that's what Kaku's trying to do. He's trying to take a real esoteric stuff, theoretical physics, and cosmology, and trying to make it understandable.
Sure,
that's a good analogy.
Sure, and and I think that, and it's important that how do I say, the Bible is used so well in controlling, and controlling people, and you're right. The guys like Sitchin and the guys that write these, they don't ever think that people are really going to do the legwork. They're going to read the book and they're going to go, oh, you've done all the legwork for me, thus it's true. It's written.
Yeah.
And that's what's...
It's really, I've just talk a little bit about how the book was born. I described this in the first chapter, and if people go up to theunseenrealm.com, they can see like a kind of a trailer, a video trailer that sort of dramatizes this. That was the marketing department's idea, but I had my watershed moment in graduate school. I had 2 master's degrees. I'm in a doctoral program in Hebrew studies. I'd taught on the undergraduate level for 5 or 6 years, and I'm sitting there before church starts, and a friend of mine who's in the Hebrew department, I don't know what we were talking about, but I'll never forget how the conversation ended. He said, you need to read Psalm 82 in Hebrew. And he had his Hebrew Bible with it. He handed it to me, and I did. And it was like, it's Elohim Nitzav Ba'adat El. God has taken his place, his stand in the divine council. B'kerev Elohim Yishpot. In the midst of the gods, he passes judgment. And it just, I thought, how in the world could I be where I'm at and I've never seen that. And it is this a pantheon? And what do we do about monotheism? It just, all these questions just exploded. And eventually it became a focus point of my dissertation. I'm not a polytheist. I'm actually a pretty traditional Trinitarian, but I don't fudge this passage by saying, oh, the gods, they're just people. Oh, they're just idols. No, they're not. They're not. When the Bible says that Yahweh is the God of gods, it actually means what it says. He's not the God of cartoon characters that don't exist, or the God of leprechauns. He's not greater than beings that don't exist. I'm greater than that, okay?
Yeah.
I'm bigger than Batman because I exist.
Yeah.
So that event propelled me in graduate school, and as I began to unravel all this stuff and I'll put it this way, I can just remember thinking to myself 2 thoughts. I am no longer going to read the Bible and have it filtered by denominational tradition, church tradition, any tradition. I am going to try to read it like a second millennium, first millennium BC Israelite would see it. Mm-hmm. I want the Israelite in my head. And as soon as you do that, there are just things that just open up that as you're able to do that. And, I once that started, and I began to process all the weird passages, how an Israelite would. Again, someone who's predisposed to a supernatural worldview.
Yeah.
Instead of how Christians are selectively supernatural. Got my God, got my Trinity, got Jesus, got angels and demons and Satan, and I'm done now. There's a whole bigger cast of characters than that.
Yeah, I'm good to go.
right, going on. But as soon as I started doing that, the second thought popped into my head. It's like, it's just wrong for me to sit here and be rediscovering my Bible as a doctoral student and loving it, knowing that people in church never get this. And that really disturbed me. And I thought, you know what? I can fill this void. I can take high scholarship on all these subjects and make it decipherable for the normal person, the non-specialist. And that 15 years, move 15 years ahead to today. That is how Unseen Realm was born.
Okay.
Just that desire to give you the Bible unfiltered. And there's a price to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been in plenty of churches doing lectures on stuff, and they look at you like you got two heads.
Yeah.
I've been in classes where you know what they're thinking. I'm going to go report you to the dean. I'm going to go tell my mom. I'm going to go call my pastor. You know, look, I've just decided I am no longer going to protect people from their Bible.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do it anymore because there's value in not doing it. There's this thrill of discovery. If you take it unfiltered and have to grapple with it and think about it, you'll read your Bible again for the first time. I mean, that's what happened to me. And again, read the reviews. It happens to readers, and I get it completely because I had to live through it too.
And I think that's important to call out is that you're not bashing or that
I'm not.
No,
I'm
not
very
at all. You're confirming.
I'm very I'm I have told again church groups things like this. It's like, look, I'm telling you right now, I believe in the uniqueness of the God of the Bible. There's only one of those. I'm a Trinitarian. I understand what the gospel is. I know who Jesus was. All this traditional stuff. I said, I affirm these things, but if you listen to me, I may get to those places by a totally different route. And on the way, I'm going to destroy arguments that are familiar to you, that you've come to know and love and trust. And I'm going to tell you where they don't work, and I'm going to destroy them in front of your eyes. But you've got to trust me. I'm telling you up front. It's like getting into a car. You say, hey, can you take me to the store? And I say, oh, sure, hop in. And then we start driving, and you start looking out the window, and nothing looks familiar.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, who is this crazy man? What have I just done? Am I going to make it there alive? And I try to tell people, yeah, you'll make it. You'll make it. Yeah. You're going to be uncomfortable in places, but I will get you to the destination. And when you're there, you'll know why you're there. Yeah. You'll be able to trace why you're there from the text, not some flimsy, phony argument that, a pastor or a priest or whatever gave you because somebody in the 4th century came up with that.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I'm definitely going to read your book, and I'm definitely going to go back and read the Bible because I'm a science guy. So I read the Bible, and to me, it doesn't make sense. It
well,
just doesn't.
There's a lot in it that will not make sense.
I'm just what the heck is this all about?
Yep.
And
there's a lot in there that will not make sense at the first pass. It's like any other book. Some things are clear, some things aren't. But we're 2, 3, 4,000 years removed.
Yeah.
I like to use this illustration. Let's say we're sitting there in a small group Bible study, like lots of people have been in these things. We know the drill. You sit there in a circle, you open your Bible, and somebody reads something, the leader, and then he looks at you and says, what do you think this means? What does this mean to you? And you go around the room, So if there was an Israelite in the room there, somebody from 1500 BC, when you got to that guy, his answer is going to be wildly different. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Than anybody else in the room.
Oh, yep.
And you're gonna wonder about inviting that guy back because he's frightening you.
Yeah.
No, that's the guy who needs to live in your head to understand it.
Well, I mean, obviously you, and I don't expect you to listen to my show. I spent a year with the Lubavitch, and I actually for a full year studied because I was like, I want to learn what Jesus, during that time frame, what it was like, not my impressions of what I think, but I want to learn what it was like to be there, and I couldn't think of any other group but then, the Lubavitch.
You will be fascinated.
Okay.
Again, email me after the show. I will send you a book. You'll be fascinated. There's nothing like, again, it takes time. It took me 15 years, to really have the Israelite or the first century Jew in my head, and being willing to say, well, this is how they would look at it, but that isn't how my tradition looks at it. Which one am I going to choose? I mean, to come down on the side, this is going to sound radical, to come down on the side of the people who actually live there versus, an authority figure in our tradition. I mean, I can say now that was an easy call, but 10 years ago it wasn't. It was uncomfortable. I'm going to lose friends. I mean, I even lost a job. Things like that happen when people aren't patient enough to hear you out and understand what you're trying to do, and to give you enough trust, to build a relationship there. But I don't regret it. I am unrepentant. Okay. Yeah. I am just unrepentant at making those decisions, and that decision in particular. And again, Unseen Realm is trying to help people go through that process, themselves.
Sure. And I can't wait. I mean, don't say I'll get it from Amazon. From everybody else, you got bills to pay just like the rest of us. So I'll definitely get it.
The offer's there. You do with it what you like.
Well, we can do it. Maybe do a special. But I did one before we go to break. All right. So I already know. Well, I don't know the answer, so I'm going to ask the question. And the 12th planet. I have a lot of listeners who are now all not up in arms, but everybody's looking at the sky for Nibiru and the 12th planet. I mean, this seems to be the thing of the day, the flavor of the day.
Is this because of the September 23rd thing, or some other prophecy that?
Yeah, I think it is the 23rd. But we've got about 3 minutes before we have to go to a break, and probably not fair.
Let not your heart be troubled. Let not your heart be troubled.
Yeah, I'm not.
We can talk about the Nibiru mythology, at least from the Sitchin perspective, but sure. Those who peddle it, have really sort of draw on Sitchin's work. So I can say something about that, and also direct listeners to an astronomer who does what I do in biblical stuff. He tackles all this sort of bizarre astronomy, and has a wonderful podcast that I think people would really benefit from.
Yeah. So I definitely want to get to that. And the other thing is, we got 2 minutes before the break, so I don't want to get into anything. I just got to ask, do you believe in aliens or higher species?
I don't see any evidence that there are aliens. I'm one of these that hopes there are.
Okay.
Because it's one of those things that's kind of a bucket list thing.
Sure.
Like before I die, I'd like to know this. I'd like to kind of see it, or just know that it's there, or not. I don't think we can use an unknown to prove another unknown. Oh, I see a thing up in the sky. I don't know what that is. It must be aliens. Well, if I knew that aliens were real, well, then that gets on the table. Maybe that is an alien flying around up there. But I can't use an unknown. I don't know what that object is. And I'm going to use that as proof to prove this other thing I don't know. It just doesn't make any logical sense to do that. But I'm hopeful. Yeah. I just don't think we have proof of it now.
I mean, the only thing, like I said, until I can actually fly the spaceship and talk to them.
Oh yeah, the bar is really high, and people often don't think about it.
Yeah.
How high the bar really is in these days.
Yeah.
Videos and pictures don't cut it.
Now with all of the video editing and everything, I don't believe in any of it. It's just, for me, I mean, like I said, I do the trips out into the Gulf, and you can take infrared camera, and there are clearly things up there flying around that I can't, as a pilot, as a former pilot, I can't describe it. I mean, I've seen things in high orbit that are moving across the sky stop and then completely change direction. Now, of course, when you're up 70,000 feet or wherever, a slight turn is going to look like a 90-degree turn. Mm-hmm. So it's all relative, and I get that. But
I'm actually really suspicious of. I think we have. I don't know if I want to use the term secret space program, but I think we do have a space program that's beyond what the public thinks of as a space program.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got the Boeing, the X-35, which they shoot up every year, and it sits up there for a year and a half. I mean, I don't doubt it one bit. But we're gonna take a break, and when we get back, Doctor, we'll talk about aliens, and we'll get into a little bit more of that, and we'll talk about the 12th, the Nibiru and the 12th planet. But we're listening to the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Norton. Join us here every Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
such a shame. Left here in vain. Follow the kid. Trying to find my groove. Just trying to find my groove. Just trying to find my groove. Got nothing left to prove but to myself. To myself. And if you sing with me, then you will plainly see that it's alright. It's alright. 4 strings of fury and 300
That's Ed Roman. He's going to be joining us here next week, Indie Artist of the Year. Well, hopefully Indie Artist of the Year. We'll know here in the next few days. He's going to be in my hometown. He is a nominee for 2016 Indie Artist of the Year, and also a great guest. Like I said, he'll be on the show next Friday. It's going to be interesting. I promise we're not going to be talking about music like we did last time. We're going to be talking more about his experiences with the paranormal. But right now, we have our guest has joined us is Dr. Michael Heiser is on the Skype line. And right before we went to break, we were talking about Nibiru, Dr. Heiser. So let's go ahead and we're blowing them up. Let's just go ahead. Let's keep going down this hill. So all my guests for next week are canceling.
There you go.
They're all canceled because I have next week is Giant Weekend or not Giant Week, and if you look at my guests, you'll know the names. You'll see the names, and I'm sure you'll recognize a lot of them. But we're going to be talking about the giants and the Nephilim and the Anunnaki, and I'm just going to go in there with a bunch of I think people have the right to believe what they want to believe.
You're a host. You bear no personal responsibility.
That's right. I have no response. It's funny because I get all the time people go, "Do you believe this stuff?" And it's like, to be honest with you, I don't have to believe it. My job is to present it. That's my job in an open, respectful forum to allow people to express what they believe or what they don't. That's my job. Now, I will tell you this. If you're a guest and you don't believe yourself, and I can pick that up every once in a while, I've had one actually who was just peddling books. I kind of have an issue with that, and I made it very clear to him that I have an issue. At least believe what you're spewing, and stuff.
At least.
Yeah. So no, as a gracious host, it's not my job to judge you. I'm fascinated by all this stuff. I'm just utterly fascinated by it all. It's amazing how we can go through. I can go through 46 years of my life on this earth and realize that I just need to hit the reset button and start over. What I thought is nothing of based in fact or reality. But enough of that. So Nibiru, the 12th planet. Let's talk about this.
For people who are interested in this topic, and again, my take on it, there are a few things to say here. You can get all the information on the website sitchiniswrong.com. That's SITCHIN, then is wrong. Sure. And what this site is, this is an old site. I made it, I don't know, 10 years ago or whatever it was. And the content, the site used to be much uglier than it is now. It's still kind of ugly because I don't know what I'm doing with design, but it's there for anybody who wants it. And basically, it's taking Sitchin topically. There's a tab for Nibiru, 12th planet, Anunnaki, Nephilim, Elohim, all that stuff. And what I'm trying to do on this is to take people to primary texts. So I don't want them just taking Sitchin's word for it, and I don't want them taking Mike's word for it. I try to get them to primary text. Now, to do that, I do thrilling, exciting things on this site, like make screen capture videos of me going to sites like the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature, where, it's like, hey, mother, hey, kids, Mike's doing another screen capture video. Get the popcorn. Yeah. It's boring stuff, but it's telling because
sure.
You can watch me go to this site and other sites And it's like, okay, we're here at the ETCSL site. Let's type in Anunnaki. I'll show you how to spell it in, in transliterated Sumerian. Then you type it in, you hit the button, and the site is a database. It does the work for you. It returns all of the places in the cuneiform material that the Anunnaki are mentioned in. Now, when you get the results, it's going to be in transliteration, lots of words you can't read. So then you click the little TR button next to it. That means translation. Yeah. And you can look and see and read in English all of the places where the Anunnaki are mentioned. And I do the same thing for Nibiru. I made a little chart for Nibiru and whatnot. So if we're talking about Anunnaki, here's why I do it. I tell people, look, the issue between myself and Sitchin is not that Mike disagrees with Zecharia Sitchin's translations about the Anunnaki. The issue is worse than that for Zecharia Sitchin. His major claims that the Anunnaki, are from another planet, or the Anunnaki live on Nibiru or fly on Nibiru, and it cycles through every 3,600 years. All this stuff. There isn't a single line in a single tablet that exists that says these things in Mesopotamian literature. So where I'm not disagreeing about how to translate something, you can't translate something that isn't there. It doesn't exist. And so I don't want you to just take my word for it. I want you to run the search. Just run it. Mm-hmm. And do it yourself and look. And you'll find out who's right.
Yeah.
And who's wrong.
I actually put the link.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I actually put the link in the chat room there on YouTube where all of our listeners can go out and do their own. And that's important. Now,
it is important because I don't like the argument from authority. I want people to go look, and I will show you the trail. I will show you the sources. If you can get it for free, I'll give you the link. Just go up and do it. Like Nibiru, I made a little paper. You go to the sitchiniswrong.com, go to the Nibiru tab, little paragraph or two there about how, hey, Nibiru is mentioned in cuneiform text. It's not many times, but it's there. And look, I'm giving you all of the all the occurrences here in this PDF file. I show you that the lexicons, the dictionaries, the scholarly dictionaries I'm using exist online for free in PDF. You can go look at all the references. And in my list here, and you will not find Nibiru, ever mentioned as a planet beyond Saturn. Why Saturn? Because that's all they knew about. Nibiru is not a planet beyond Pluto. It's not even mentioned as ever being a planet or celestial body beyond Saturn, because Saturn is the limits of naked eye astronomy, for them. So what is it? It's identified with Jupiter. It's identified in another text with Mercury. In other texts, it's just called a star. So, which is it? You can't be both Jupiter and Mercury. What is that? Well, Nibiru really is a term you would use to denote a celestial event. A crossing is kind of the base meaning of the term. So that's why it can be used with different celestial bodies in different texts. There's another text, a cuneiform astronomical text. There are whole books written on cuneiform astronomy. This is well-known material. Nibiru never cycles through our solar system every 3,600 years. In fact, in one astrolabe, it's something that is noted to occur every year. Because again, it refers to some event, that something crossing another thing, that sort of thing. So the bottom line here is, look, you're either going to trust this guy named Zecharia Sitchin, whose major points don't even exist in the tablets, or you're going to trust the scribes who wrote the stuff. And if you can't make that decision, then you got bigger problems, than I can help you with. Because that is a drop-dead, no-brainer decision.
Yeah, I mean, so I understand. So the term Nibiru, it's just a generic term.
Right. It can be used to identify, again, like Jupiter or Mercury or whatever. It can also, again, refer to a crossing point, with where the celestial objects aren't mentioned. That sort of thing. It has a not a wide range of uses, but it has some elasticity to it.
Sure. It's like the celestial escalator. The term escalator was actually the name of the company, but we use it so much that it's become it's become the
like a proper noun.
Like a proper noun, exactly. Yeah. So, okay.
So that's what I'm trying to do on the site. Everybody, well, what about the cylinder seal that shows the 12 planets? Well, it actually doesn't show 12 planets. I have comparative, iconography that, this thing that Sitchin says is the sun really isn't the way that the Mesopotamians would draw the sun. And if you actually translate, there is Sumerian text. There is text on this cylinder seal. It's cylinder seal VA 243, which is in the Berlin Museum. It doesn't say anything about there being 12 planets. There's just nothing to support it. Yeah, what about the figurines of the reptilian Anunnaki? Well, guess what? Those are Ubaid figurines. They are prehistoric. They come from an era before writing. There is no writing on them to tell you what they are. So to say that you know what they are is literally, drumroll please, making stuff up. Okay, and again, I'm trying to get people to go back to primary sources and not just parrot what Mike says. If it's not, that's only fair. I don't want you to parrot what I say versus parroting what somebody else says. Go back to the primary sources and actually look at what you're dealing with, and go from there.
What would you say to the individuals say, well, this is a big conspiracy that these scientists, you guys have all collaborated and
I want to know where the check is.
Okay. Yeah. And I think it's funny. I think it's actually good to mention with the whole Zachariah thing, people said, oh yeah, Dr. Heiser made all this money. And you actually showed your tax returns and said, where's the check?
Who posted his tax returns on the internet. Yeah, I did that. That was to shut up William Henry.
Okay.
I got this email from Henry about how I was leeching off Sitchin's greatness or something like that. Yeah. It's like, really? I'm a grad student. Does that mean anything to you? So I posted my income tax returns on the internet. They're still there. I never took them down. I blacked out my social security number and all that kind of stuff, and my kids. But it's like, look, I'm not making anything.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Who knows? I've had people, and I'm not going to out anybody here because, they ask you not to say anything, and you have to honor that. But I have gotten phone calls or like in between breaks on shows by very famous people on big talk shows like Coast to Coast, okay? The really big, the ones that everybody sort of knows about.
Yeah.
I've had those people either tell me during breaks or call me up and give me all sorts of crazy stuff about Sitchin. Yeah. He's an Illuminatist. He worked for the CIA. He worked for the NSA. He worked for this alphabet soup agency. He was a plant. He's this, he's that. I don't believe any of that. Mm-hmm. I think it's just nonsense. I don't think Sitchin was some kind of like paid disinformation agent. I think he just sort of came to believe in his own mythology and made a living out of it and enjoyed it and just said, well, this is what I'm going to do now.
Yeah.
I'm going to write books and work from home, and this is what I'm going to do. So, I could go down a number of these really, again, crazy rabbit trails, and maybe I was being told this because people wanted me to repeat this stuff. But I just think it's nuts. I don't think there's anything, occultish, about what Sitchin was doing. I just think it's a whole lot simpler than that.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that you're saying, look, don't take my word for it. Go here. Go figure it out. Go do your own homework. That's kind of like I used to tell my students in computer classes. I'm not going to show you how to do something. Go do it yourself. And that's part of learning. That's part of the process.
How easy would it be if what I was saying right now wasn't true? That you're never going to find a cuneiform tablet that has the Anunnaki associated with Nibiru. You're not going to find that. How easy would it be to make Mike go away if there was one? Somebody's going to produce that.
Someone will produce it in a heartbeat. Oh, absolutely.
But there isn't.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you how to check. how to check up on my claim.
Sure.
And some people will do it and other ones don't. I mean, it's the best I can do to just, give people an avenue to check the sources. And I don't do Sitchin stuff. I mean, this site is old. I got lots of other things that I frankly find more interesting.
Yeah.
Than this, but I'm sort of now known for being the Sitchin debunking guy.
Now,
and that's okay, but it's not like anything I really invest in.
Now I'm gonna bring up another one that I think you're known for. MK Ultra.
How am I known for that? I mean, it is in my novels.
Did you not do some kind of like testing or dating or of the document themselves?
You're talking about the MJ documents, the Majestic documents.
The Majestic 12. That's right.
Yeah,
I get
MJ12.
the MJ12.
Yeah, you get the alphabet soup.
I get them mixed up. The MK Ultra, MK12. It's whatever. So
MOUSC.
I have never read any of those documents. I just, like I said, I'm a computer guy, so I know how you can manipulate things. You can manipulate paper just like you can manipulate anything else. So let's talk. So
we can get into that story a little bit. I mean, what I'm interested in UFO stuff, and the Majestic documents are pretty much dismissed by UFO researchers today.
Sure.
Every year that goes by, it seems that they get less and less credibility for good reasons. They have a very suspicious heritage. For people who sort of want to know the history of these, I recommend if you go up to Open Minds TV, Alejandro Rojas, who's a big name in ufology, he has a really nice video documentary on the Majestic documents. It's very informative, so I would recommend people do that for background. But what I did was, where I work, we do databases, for ancient language stuff. And in our field, in the field of biblical studies and ancient language studies, there's an intersection between certain databases that exist now and in the external field of something called forensic linguistics, specifically authorship attribution. These are the people who, when they're in a court case, they have to decide, okay, did this person write this or not? Mm-hmm. And there are ways that you can analyze that linguistically. And when it comes to a big corpus, like a bunch of documents, it's nice to be able to do that with computers. So I looked for one of these people. Her name was Carol Chasky. She did her PhD in linguistics. And she actually wrote her own software to do her doctoral project. And her field is authorship attribution. She has a long history of doing this in court, legal settings and whatnot, hundreds of cases. So I approached her and I said, look, what you do is you compare known documents that no one can test that the name at the end of this thing is the person who wrote it. So she compares known documents with unknowns. And what she's looking for in her software, I mean, I had to reduce all this to text files. I had to type a lot of this stuff out. But I took all the major documents of the Majestic collection that had an author, at the bottom, had an author associated with it, and had those typed up. And then I collected known documents like FDR or Admiral Hillenkotter or whatever, I collected a bunch of known ones that are not in dispute. And I gave her all these text files because what her software does is it doesn't do things that are obvious like compare vocabulary, because anybody can learn the vocabulary of a field and fake it. What her software does is it tracks words that you don't think about, that you sort of use reflexively, like conjunctions, how you use punctuation.
Okay.
Do you use commas or semicolons? Stuff like that. The things that when you write, you sort of do subconsciously, that sort of thing. So I said, here's all this stuff. I raised, some money. I saved money. It was my own money and paid her to do that because I kind of wanted to know. So there was 10 different authors or whatever. Are any of these documents authentic? I mean, would they pass muster in a court of law according to what you do after you put them through your process? And only one of the documents came back as positive, that the person whose name is on this is a very high likelihood that this is the author. But that meant a couple dozen of them were fraudulent in terms of their authorship attribution. Now, to be fair, although that really cast a lot of suspicion on the documents, and they had a lot of bad things going for them to begin with, that doesn't mean that, oh, there are no aliens, or, oh, nothing happened in this event. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that somebody, was behind the production of these documents. So it doesn't solve the UFO issue. It doesn't even solve individual cases like Roswell. Sure. What it does is it helps you weed out things that should not be part of the conversation anymore. The noise. And that's what it does. You get rid of the noise. So yeah, I had that done. I went on coast to coast. I presented that research at Roswell at a conference, and then I went on coast to coast because what Carol did, she said, based upon what you can pay me, there are 3 or 4 different kind of levels of confirmation stuff we can throw at it. She said, this what we did here is going to be stuff that would stand up in a court of law, but there are other things I could do, other approaches to sort of nail it down. But I said, well, I'm not going to ask you to volunteer your time. We need to raise the money. It was a few $1,000s, but I had spent what I had. So I went on coast to coast and asked people, if you're interested in this and you want to get to the bottom of it, send a contribution here and we'll get this done. I raised $20 on Coast to Coast AM. Now, what that tells you, and yes, I gave the $20 back. What that tells you is that most people really don't want the truth.
Yeah.
They want something that's going to affirm their prejudices up front. That's what they want. Yeah. So that was a hard pill for me to swallow. I had a little more confidence in the audience before the show than I did afterward. But that was a good lesson. Yeah. And that was the end of that.
Well, now I have to ask, so the one document that came back positive, it was probably the only document that was heavily redacted, right?
Well, it was a letter. I'm trying to remember who, it might have been a Hillenkotter one, but there was nothing explosive in the document. It was one of those, and most of the Majestic documents are like this: time, place. Sure. There was this sighting. What is that? There wasn't, again, anything, like, it's not one of these that are mentioning bodies or anything like that. So it didn't really advance anything, but at least it apparently, passed muster. So, well, like I said, that was, I just thought, I'm going to do this because it's something that I can contribute to the field that I know something about, and I have enough money to get this done. So why not? Let's just try it. Nobody else has tried it. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember, a lot of people, when you were doing that, I mean, you caught some flack though. There was a lot of people that weren't happy with, and they accused you of being a disinformation agent.
Yeah. I've been called a disinformation agent. I've been called a Jesuit.
Yeah.
My kids like to find YouTube videos about me. Oh. And I say, don't tell Mom because she'll ask where the money is.
Yeah, she'll want to know where
So I tell people I'm working on being in the Illuminati because I ought to get paid something for that. I mean, there's got to be some benefit to that.
Yeah.
I
can introduce you to Leo if you want. I can hook you guys up. It's not what it's all cut up to be. Trust me, based upon his. Yeah, but
I refer to myself as a small C conspiracist. I just don't think we need, these little groups of, blood drinking, weird bloodline people or whatever. The caricatures of the Illuminati.
Yeah.
Look.
Well, I mean, there's as much as
I think there are people who are into that.
Yeah.
Who want to run the world or do something. But I think the real movers and shakers, there's just a lot more of them.
Yeah.
And it's very normal for them to collude together to
Yeah.
get things they want. You don't need rituals to go with that. I mean, sure, there's some people that do. That's their thing.
Well,
But I
look
just
at,
don't assign much importance.
look at Bohemian Grove. I mean, look at,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
I think
just weird
I think it's the esoteric sense of people where I think when rich, crazy people get together, just like,
They
look
do
at
crazy
Burning.
things.
Well, they do crazy things. I mean, look at Burning Man. So that's the opposite end, where you get a lot of people who are, just hipsters, I guess, lack of a better term, and they're out there doing everything else. Hey, Doc, once again, I blew through this break. Can we take this break? And I want to talk about what you're doing now. Let's talk about all right, so we're off all the stitching stuff and everything, and I'm very curious because I know we're backing up the time here. And I want to talk about some of the projects that you're working with now, the company you're doing work for, and some of the cool things there that are out there for us civilians who want to learn more about the Bible and everything. So let's take a break, and then when we get back, we will wrap it up and everything. But we're talking with Dr. Michael Heiser, and I promise we're gonna lay off the stitching conversation. We're done. I think we stuck a fork in it. We are definitely done. So this is Jeff Norton of the Midnight Ocean Radio Show and Podcast. Join us here every weeknight from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or on the web at www.themidnightocean.com.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
There you go. There's some music that'll put you to sleep in those wee hours of the morning. I hope you guys have plans for the weekend with your family, with your loved ones or friends, whatever it may be. You know, take the time, enjoy your family. Do the things that make you happy. Life's too short, my friends. Life is definitely too short. But right now we're talking with our very special guest, Dr. Michael Heiser. And as promised, Doctor, I think I'm tired of beating them up. So you're telling me I wasted my credit on Amazon? My one credit. I started, it's funny because I started to read his book actually 2 days ago. But it's fiction. Look, I treat it as fiction anyways. Unless it's hard science, it's all fiction to me. Anywho. So what are you doing these days? I mean, what are you up to?
Well, a number of things. I'm still sort of in the, interview phase and traveling to promote Unseen Realm. I've taken actually 13 trips, where I'll go someplace and spend a day at a location, 4, 5, 6 hours, with Q&A and talk about the content of the Unseen Realm. I'm one of these people that I like Q&A. I mean, I remember I did a MUFON, a regional MUFON conference one time and did 4 hours of Q&A. It was a little ridiculous, but I like it. So I've done a lot of that this year. I just handed in a manuscript on a book that really focuses on the Book of Enoch, and that's going to a different publisher that did Unseen Realm. So the title of the book is Reversing Hermon. Mount Hermon is where the Book of Enoch has the Watchers. That's his term for the sons of God from Genesis 6. Descending to hatch their plot. And this whole story of the Watcher's transgression bleeds into New Testament theology in a number of passages that really people are not aware of, that this is sort of, again, lurking in the background. It helps explain why different things are said in the New Testament as they are. So I thought, hey, there's lots of peer-reviewed stuff, dissertations on all this, but nobody's ever collected it and put it in one book. That seems like a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. So I just handed that in. That's going to come out in February or March, I'm told. So right now I'm trying to decide, should I work on another nonfiction book or should I start into my third novel? That's where my heart is. I don't know what makes sense yet. So I've decided I'll take a couple of weeks off and not write anything and just kind of try to figure that out. Mm. So, I love fiction. It's just, what can you say? You get to be God.
Absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
You decide who lives and dies.
That's right. And you can make crazy claims.
Well, what I try to do is again, lots of people say this, but I'm very intentional about it. Like on the cover of my novels, the first novel was The Facade, which is the one that, got me on the Art Bell show at the very beginning. And on the cover, it says something like, everything in this book is real. Every document, every ancient text is real. It's authentic. Every technology, exists and whatnot. And that's not just marketing shtick. That's actually deliberate. What I like to do is I like to write faction. In other words, every data point in the book is real. What's fiction are, of course, the characters and then how I connect these dots, and make a story out of it. So if you read one of the characters talking about an ancient text that says this or that, that's real. You can go look that up. find it and read it for yourself. And I enjoy that. I like to piggyback theology onto fiction. I like to use fiction to explore, these questions. Like in the facade, the centerpiece of the facade, the central question, the main character gets confronted with is, could traditional Christianity, really Judeo-Christianity, could traditional Judeo-Christianity survive a genuine extraterrestrial disclosure? Could what would happen? And so the main character, who's basically me, I'd never written fiction before, so I kind of made the main character after myself in terms of what he does, because I had to know somebody in the book. So that's what he gets confronted with, and you essentially follow this struggle. And there's all sorts of, again, conspiracy things that happen. You got the cattle mutilation thing, you got UFOs, you got government document, the whole bit, and all of it's real, again. So it's a nice way of exposing people to research items and what people say about them, but you do it in the form of fiction. And ancient texts, demonology, all this kind of stuff, just comes out of the woodwork. It's so much fun. Because that's the time when you get to sort of speculate, well, if I was the evil mastermind behind this thing, how would I pull this off? What would be my end game?
Sure.
How would I take this piece of factual information and how would I manipulate it to move the herd to think the thought that I want them to think, so that they are ready to embrace the next thought I want them to think? So that's a lot of fun, but again, people can learn a lot of things through the novels and hopefully be entertained. So again, people can get them on Amazon, read the reviews. They've been pretty popular.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking about now. As far as work, we recently made a product called Learn to Use Greek and Hebrew, because people want to feel that they can get beyond their English translation. And so myself and a colleague here made a product, that's the name of it, where we show how to use tools that our company creates, but how you'd actually use them to do things like start in your English translation and then penetrate beyond it and learn something from Greek and Hebrew word studies and Greek and Hebrew grammar. How do you get to the data? And then how should you think about the data? What are the good questions to ask once you're looking at data? So there's all sorts of stuff like that, and your reference content. Well, there's always something to work on. And I told my brother a couple of weeks ago at his birthday, I said, he asked me something about work, and I said, I feel like I haven't worked since 2004. Because it's like everything I do, I like.
Yeah.
I would do this if I was retired.
Yes.
So that's really, wonderful to be able to, to say that, because I enjoy it. I think it's useful for people. It's just a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I tell people it's Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
You get to go, you get up every day doing, of course there's the days where you are a little sore.
Got a groin pull.
Yeah, you got a pull or you got a hammy or something like that. But for the most part, it's always been like that for even me with software. Is that I tell people I'm in the Major League Baseball of my industry, and I love it. Now things are changing, and so that's why I'm moving back into the radio side, and yeah.
We have. We're a software company, so I understand. I don't do any coding myself. I create things that our coders will use.
Sure.
But that just, my perception of that is that changes a lot. There's always new languages to learn. There's always, this or that tweaking of how we use this thing that we've been using for years, and there's a lot to keep up on.
Yeah, you retool in our industry about every 3 years. You retool, and during the 3 years, you're constantly. And that's the thing with me is that the professional certifications every 2 years now, and it's just like I'm getting too old for this. And I'm in telecommunications, so that's the industry that's just going gangbusters. So it's changing every year. technologies are changing, especially with mobile devices and communication. But that's so.
But if you enjoy it, there's
I
just
love it.
it's just wonderful.
Yeah, I love. Well, I've got patents in it, and those patents are still relative. I mean, they're still being used. So,
Sweet.
so it's a great thing. But I am definitely feeling the burn. I mean, I'm getting a lot more groin pulls these days, and that's why I'm going back to my first love, which has always been radio. And stuff.
Yeah,
but
it's important. It's important to leave time to do things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just because you know, who wants to sit there and think, well, I really could have done that if I had just, jumped in. And, you don't want to feel that way.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and do it.
And that's something that I'm going to be doing here in the near future is working with other podcasts, because I've learned obviously I had a lot of it coming into a lot of the knowledge and stuff, but I'm used to having, especially in radio, you have all the equipment. It's all set up. You just show up and do the work. This one here, we built from scratch, and man, I've learned a lot. And so my next series of videos that I'm going to be putting out is showing people basically how they can put together a podcast and do it, using the technology that's out there, free. It's all free.
Yeah, I actually have two podcasts. The one, the Paranormal, was pretty new, because again, that was just something that we all thought it's long overdue to do this. But the first one is biblical studies. It's called the Naked Bible Podcast. And the title comes from, look, it's just the Bible. We're stripping away all the denominational stuff, all the tradition. We're not dealing with that. It's just the Bible all by itself, hence Naked Bible. But I started that myself. Again, like you said, you could use these tools. And I was quickly maxed out and just couldn't keep it up. So I quit it after 33 episodes, and then somebody stepped forward who actually knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And said, you need to start this up again. So we have, and we're pushing 120 episodes of that now. Awesome. But I never thought I would, at the beginning I thought, well, this would be fun. Let's try it. And then the realities of it and my limitations hit, and then it wasn't so fun anymore. But now it's back to being fun because I have someone competent, who can help me with this.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people
that's
just
a good idea you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people just don't realize, and I tell them, because we do a 4-hour show every night, and a 4-hour show usually requires about 6 hours of prep work, and to keep the wheels going, to keep everything going. We spend about 6 hours a day preparing for a 4-hour show. So there's your day. Yeah, it's not like I just turn on the microphone and start doing. And that's the thing that I want to start teaching new podcasters. Say, hey, look, these are the things that will help you become more efficient in what you do. And also, obviously we've been very successful with getting some great guests, and there's no secret to it. I tell everybody the secret is ask. That's all you got to do is ask. Everybody and treat everybody, everybody's got a story to tell. And for the most part, people want to tell their story, and you just got to ask.
Yeah, this. I would say the other sort of newsworthy thing for me the last year is again, long story, trying to keep it really short here. There was a listener, again, somebody who'd followed my content for years, and called me, one day and said, you need to start some sort of, nonprofit or ministry or something that, so you can do more of this stuff and get help. And I put this guy off for 3 years. Like, I don't know how I would do this. It sounds like, just something that I'm not going to be able to accomplish. But once he convinced me to sort of, he paid for everything, did the paperwork, the whole bit. He was serious. But once that started, and we thought, well, what kind of projects can we do? Once it became news, there were people who just in the audience that just stepped forward and said, I want to donate my time. I'll do this for 2 or 3 hours a week, or I'll do this task for 2 or 3. It's really been amazing. Yeah. And so there are people out there who are looking for an opportunity to contribute in some way to the things that, you're interested in, but you you often don't really think about it that way.
Yeah.
But there really are. Like one of the big project that my nonprofit right now is involved in is raising money for ritual abuse survivors. And we've been able to get donations for that we
Wow.
there are people who are sort of operate off the radar, because in that field you kind of have to operate off the radar, who were able to pay expenses for people to go see them and stay with them for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. But again, that was just something, somebody needs to do this. And it's like, well, here, I bet people in the audience would be willing to help out. But you can't just sort of sit down and just have that happen. It wouldn't happen unless you had people who, again, came alongside you and did things that you wouldn't even think you needed to do to make this work. So that's really been a great learning experience, but also just a good experience in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your peer review, that podcast, when's that going live?
That we're 3 episodes in, so that is live. If you go to paranormal.com, you'll see the first one we introduced the idea. The second one we did psychic animals. Like, does the dog really know that you're coming home? At a distance and all that kind of stuff. Which I thought that was a cool topic. I enjoyed that. The last one. Go ahead.
Well, no, EVP.
Yeah, we did EVP. On the one after that. The one we're gonna record next week, we're gonna do crop circles.
Wow.
So again, our procedure for this is Mike goes and looks at the academic databases, who's doing the research or who has done research here. Pull out 2 or 3 articles. I send them to everybody. Say, okay, let's read this, and then we're going to tell people, okay, here's what we read. If it exists in the public domain, or we have some way that we can post that or get it to listeners, we'll post links and whatnot to the material. But we'll talk about, okay, here was this article was about this experiment. Here's what they did, or here's this theory. Here's how they tried to test it. Again, the whole purpose is to expose people to serious people who are into these subjects, and they're trying to produce real science or real data, and whittle away at this question, whatever it is. Halloween, we're going to do an episode on ghosts and vampires. That one's not scheduled for recording yet, but it's going to be sometime in late October. But I just have reams of this stuff because I collect. I mean, I spend time during the day sometimes just going through journal databases. You do that. Like for my divine counsel stuff, my biblical theology stuff, I've done that for 10, 12 years. I have a PDF library of peer-reviewed research that's got over almost 5,500 entries. It's there. You just have to know where to find it, and then how to collect it and all that kind of stuff. So we're trying to do that with paranormal stuff. Again, it's not that we're the experts. It's that, well, there are people who really invest a lot of time in this, and they're serious. They're not doing it, for some kind of crazy reason. They actually want to know, and they're trying to use the tools of science to get at this. And so here's what they did. Now, eventually, when we get, maybe 10, 15, 20 episodes in, the plan is to go back to some of these researchers and say, hey, we did an episode on your article, Professor so-and-so. Would you like to come on, and we'll do a follow-up episode because we talked about your article, your experiment here. So we can talk about, well, are you going to go back into this? What's next for you? Are you into something else? So we want to, again, bring these people who are actually doing the research, into sort of the public arena. But we'll wait till we get, into, like I said, 15, 20 episodes down the road, because we're trying to do one a month, for those, if we can, again, get everybody together. And, it takes a little bit of time, for the reading, but that amid all, with the other podcasts, and everybody who's participating is also doing, other stuff too.
Yeah.
And they have, I have a day job and they have day jobs. So, but it's fun. We enjoy it. exposing ourselves to the material than talking about it so people know it's there. You know, we think it's a good thing to do.
No, I'm looking at the people that are involved, like Brian, and I don't know.
Now, when we do the vampire one, we're gonna ask Judd Burton to go in there because he's done a lot of research on the history of vampire stuff, and he's already sent me a few articles to take a look at, as fodder, for that episode.
Yeah.
But there's just stuff on all sorts of things, UFOs, telekinesis. I mean, again, this isn't, Uri Geller has a book to sell, so he's going to go talk about this. This is like, again, the old Art Bell show, the whole pair thing, the Princeton, study, all that kind of stuff. Well, these people are real. They did research and they published it.
Yeah.
So let's go track that down. Let's go track them down, and just talk about it.
So
what'd you find? What did you not find?
So, Doctor, would you be willing to to sell access to your database? Because that's what I'm looking for. I mean, these are the type of guests that that we have on the show, and we'll continue to have people that are
the databases I use are if you or your listeners live near definitely a college or a university will have some of the databases, like the big ones like ProQuest or something like that. Yeah. But libraries typically have to buy access to a whole panoply of databases. Now, in biblical studies, the two big ones are ATLA Religion Database, the American Theological Library Association Religion Database, and then something called JSTOR. Those are the two big ones in humanities. But ProQuest, for instance, they've probably got 50 databases, one of them for dissertations, one of them for science, one of them for astronomical stuff, and science will be whittled down into different fields. And so if you live near a college or university, chances are the library at that institution will have paid access to those databases. And what that means is that you can go in there and get a community borrower's card, and you can log in definitely on site, but maybe even remotely from home. And when you find articles, again, in these peer-reviewed databases, you will be able to get them as PDF files for free. Otherwise, to subscribe to an academic journal, we publish 4 issues a year and it's only $150 a year. Well, that's just a little ridiculous, because that's one journal. And in the hard sciences, I mean, I'm sure you're aware of this. The hard sciences, they are publishing stuff every week, and it's reams and reams and reams of stuff. It's almost impossible to. I remember having dinner. I don't know if you know who Hugh Ross is.
Yeah.
But he's a Caltech astronomer. He does Reasons to Believe. And I remember him saying. So I asked, what do you do? What? How do you split your time? What do you do? And he said about 40% of his time was spent on going through journals, journal databases. And he said, we've actually had to hire 2 people, one to do the natural sciences and the other one to do chemistry, or I don't know what it was. He goes, but I do astronomy and physics. He said, just one journal in my field will produce an issue every week, and each issue is anywhere from 300 to 500 pages. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just do the math on the page count.
Yeah.
That is just overwhelming. Biblical studies is not like that. We have, 15 or 20 really serious journals that publish anywhere from 2 to, 5 or 6 issues a year. It is not like the hard sciences. That is just overwhelming.
Yeah.
But that's where the grant money goes, and everybody, there's more people doing hard science research than there are, biblical stuff.
Well, even Lloyd said one of the restrictive things about him writing for journals is now a lot of these journals are requesting the authors pay to have their work published.
That does happen. And it's kind of a weird dynamic too, because of the peer review process, you might produce an article. you might not see it for 18 months. Now they're trying to, because of the digital world, there are some journals that are taking their content online and trying to streamline the process. But peer review takes time, especially in the hard sciences. So, there's that. Plus, the thing about having people pay stuff is that a lot of journals, their bread and butter was, hard copy purchases by libraries.
Yep.
They could count on a certain number of libraries buying into their journal, and then they could cover their costs, and the rest was gravy. Well, libraries are hurting they're hurting financially. They can't just throw a few $1 million out there to put a new wing on the library because they're filling up. And people just are not willing to pay the same price for the digital version. And scholars, believe it or not, this is going to sound insane to your audience, but a lot of scholars think less of a publication if it exists only in digital than if it exists in print. It's just ridiculous. That's just ivory tower thinking. It's kind of like the transition from green campus face-to-face instruction as opposed to distance ed, because lots of faculties thought, oh, it's just not the same quality. It's just blah 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 blah. This isn't the way we do this. Well, it's time to get into the get reacquainted with the real world. It just you got to change the way you do things. And there's resistance to it, and publishers they now have to compete for space and for purchases in libraries.
Yeah,
and they don't like that. They didn't used to have to do that, so they're trying to look for ways to offset their costs.
Exactly. Simon Schuster could come in with a new book and say, "Oh, I'm going to put it now." It's kind of like the grocery store. You got to pay to have it because you're limited by space. It's
I mean that does happen. It's just academia is just it's a different world.
Well, it is. And actually, I was watching today on PBS where there's a whole new model now and they're finding that it works. There's a company instead of going to a university. This company will loan you the money so you can learn a trade, and it's all computer sciences, so it's Java, it's learning how to program, and they will give you the money. And the thing is that the way that their system works is because they know 80% of their people are going to get jobs. They don't ask for anything back until you have a job. They'll give you the money, loan you the money, and the university doesn't get paid. The way it works is the university doesn't get paid until they place you in a job. Or it's a neat concept, and it's kind of like.
Well, can you imagine the power of marketing that to young people?
Yeah, go to school. We'll pay for it. Don't worry about it. And by the way,
who would say I want to spend my own money and maybe not get employed?
Exactly.
Who's going to choose the other option?
And what's neat about these guys with technology is that they go to the young people and they say, look, if you go and take this class, it's going to cost you $21,000. Mm-hmm. We're going to pay everything. Now, if you drop out, then you have to pay. Mm-hmm. You have to pay the part that you were there. Once you graduate, then we cut a check for the full course. So there's an incentive. Well, once you graduate and get a job, there's an incentive for the educator to help you find a job as well. Because once you graduate and you get a job, then what they do is they cut the check to the educator for $21,000. And then now you have a job when you're in software, you're making $80,000 a year. And then they come back to you at 3% interest, and then they get the money back. So it's kind of the way this is, unlike the current student loan program, is where you get all this money and they don't care if you graduate or not.
Yeah.
And then what that does is increases the cost of education for everybody else, and you have a 3% graduation rate. in traditional universities, where this one, they have an 80% graduation rate.
Yeah, and if you have the job, I mean, you have more earning power.
Yeah.
So even at that stage, it's less pain.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, what's going to happen, in a lot of these fields, mine included, is you're going to have a generation of people grow up in the digital world that are not bothered by old models. They're just going to expect innovation and new models, and they're going to get it because that's where they're going to go. Where they see it, they will go.
Yeah.
And the other ones are just going to get left behind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like here in Florida, you don't have to actually go. You can go to any, the governor here passed a law. You can go to any school you want to. Doesn't matter where you live. So if you want to go to a school in another county, as long as your parents are going to take you there, they'll take you there. Or you can just, and I know Wisconsin was doing that as well, where you can just take an online course. You just take your classes online. Yep. You don't even have to go to high school anymore.
Yeah, because the younger generation, we work with a lot of schools, so we hear all these discussions. The deans will show up here to, meet somebody or check out the building or negotiate this or that. And it's just the same conversation repeated, about this or that changing and woe is us and that kind of thing. It's like, look, that you're the people, the students that you're, again, supposed to be serving, they have a certain set of expectations.
Yep.
And if you're not meeting those expectations, like the way you deliver your content or your instruction, they're going to look at you and think, why are you so behind?
Yeah.
Why are you so backward?
Yeah.
Why are you just not with it?
Yeah. Yeah. No,
and they'll choose something else.
Yeah, they'll move on. And that's what's really, like I said, now there's options. That's the one thing, well, you obviously in school, it's like, this is my major, computer sciences. Why do I have to take history? Or why do I have to?
More pragmatic. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, because everybody else, it's kind of like, why do the doctors have to do the rotation? And so, well, because I did. That's why you have to. It's not because it serves any purpose, or all you're doing is running these people through the meat grinder.
One of the reasons we learn to use Greek and Hebrew is to get to the interpretive payoff without doing all the memorization.
Sure.
Why should we force people to become translators? We got plenty of translations, and they're good ones.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. Well, because that's the way we did it, back at Oxford in the 1600s. Well, who cares?
Who cares? Yeah. I mean, it's, well, yeah.
And I loved it. I loved the rigor of language stuff, but I realize I'm just odd. Okay. Most people are not, most people training for the pastorate, they need exposure to biblical languages, but they're not language geeks, it just, so we shouldn't beat them with this and oppress them.
Yeah. See, I would be fascinated with the language just in the sense that to me, it's kind of, especially like it's a codex. It's like a cipher.
Yeah.
And I love ciphers. That's one of my favorite things is doing ciphers and puzzles. So to me, a language, like learning to speak, whatever, but you sit me in front of something, because it's kind of like what we do in software. It's like
detective work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to figure it out.
Pattern recognition, asking the right questions. Yeah.
Yep. Which is what like I said, obviously that's my forte. Is I have patents in pattern recognition and data modeling and speech recognition and it's all been used in the telecom industry. So, but I get it. I love it and everything. Well, my friend, as all good conversations must come to an end. And everything. Is there anything that we have left out that you want to talk about? I always give the guest the opportunity, just in case I missed something.
No, I think we've this has been nice. It's been all over the board, you know. So it's not just the kind of the typical interview, and I kind of enjoyed that. So I guess just remind your listeners, my homepage is drmsh.com, and really if you go there, you can find anything we talked about here tonight. My books, nonfiction, fiction. You just drop down menus, tabs. I mean, your listeners are going to know the drill.
Yep.
But use it as a resource too. Use the search field. There's
Sure.
just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of words of content there. So
Absolutely.
it's a nice, resource. It's not just where Mike's stuff lives, that he hopes, that you'll buy and read, and enjoy. Yeah. But it's a resource in and of itself. So that and the podcast we talked about, hey, give us a listen.
I'm interested. Can I refeed your podcast after you guys do them? As long as I link them back to you guys?
I don't know how to answer that question because I'm technically inept. Send me the question by email and I'll forward it to the podcast producer.
Okay, yeah, just from a legal standpoint, because I think you guys are doing this once a month and it's definitely hand in hand with what we do. Ours is more, I believe this, thus it's so. Where yours is more, well, slow down, grasshopper. We got some research to do.
Yeah,
but
I have a question.
But I think it's because that's one of the things that we're trying to do is put together a lot of different shows, based upon non-mainstream ideas, and I think I'll shoot you an email.
Shoot me an email and I'll forward that to him and he'll be able to answer your question.
All right. So, Doctor, once again, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I hope you have plans this weekend, and it includes family.
It does. It does. A little bit of. I'm in the playoffs in my fantasy baseball league, so we gotta knuckle down there and try to not get embarrassed.
There you go. There you go. And do you happen to get back? Do you watch the Badgers? Your old alum?
I have not been back to Wisconsin. I mean, I'll catch some of their stuff on TV, but I have not actually been back to Madison, which is not a good thing. I really liked Madison.
Oh, I love Madison.
My wife has been, but I haven't.
Okay, so yeah, because we actually lived in Chicago for years, and then moved right across the border when the cost of living in Chicago got too expensive, and then
sure.
But I gotta ask, and I don't know. I do remember the question, Lloyd, when we were talking on Monday. Who, and you might know the answer, you might not. Who is the professor there at the University of Wisconsin that teaches? He's the only one that actually has a degree in parapsychology or paranormal studies, and he's a professor there at UW.
Wisconsin. No, I don't know.
He teaches a course. I'm gonna hunt him down, but he teaches a course. It's the only, and Lloyd was saying that the JFK University has a parapsychology course, and he wasn't aware of this one at University of Wisconsin-Madison.
So it's not Radin, like Dean Radin's not, latched onto there. I mean,
I'll find him.
I don't know.
But yeah, he was on Art Bell, and I remember at first I thought it was you.
No, wouldn't that be a fun job?
No, I actually thought it was you at first, and then I was like, no, you're biblical. Yeah, you were biblical, and it might be Dean. Is he a professor there?
No, but they can bring visiting professors in. To do stuff like that, and then they'll get listed as faculty because they might. When I was at Penn on the East Coast, we had a guy come in from Israel to teach an archaeology class every spring. So he was listed as faculty, but he was like an occasional faculty person. But he was regular. They offered his course or courses each spring, and then he'd show up. So maybe it's something like that.
Yeah, no, I don't see. I'm looking at Dean's CV, and I don't see. Man, the power of the internet. I don't know. Yeah, I don't see. I am going. That's my project for this weekend. I'm going to find out because I remember. I have to go back to my shows. I do remember he was on Art Bell, and he was the only one who actually tenured. He was tenured. I do remember that. He was a tenured professor at the University of Wisconsin, had his degree in parapsychology.
Wow.
which is unheard of, right?
Yeah,
Being tenured
that's
on top
very
of that.
unusual.
Usually they run you out
Hmm.
when you start. So but no, I'm gonna hunt this down. I'm sluicing. I'm gonna be looking through the great Googler, the great. So, all right, doctor, enough. But I appreciate it. Thank you very much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to talk to me and our listeners and everything. And I'll definitely be in touch, and I'll make sure that I get on your page all of the links. If I am missing anything, please reach out to me by email and just say, hey, look, add these. But they'll get fired up tomorrow morning after the show, because that's when we post all the links and stuff. So, all right.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. The pleasure's all mine, my friend. You're a heavy hitter in my book, and I'm just honored the fact that you even responded to my email.
Well, it was fun.
So, all right,
It was
sir.
fun.
All right.
Yep. You have a good night.
Oh, you too. Bye now.
Yep.
So there you go. Dr. Michael Heiser joining us. And yeah, like I said, he has a long history for those in ufology and everything. Not necessarily ufology, but was Sitchin. Fascinating. You guys got to go back and listen to some of the classic Art Bell shows. You can Google them. They're out there, especially on YouTube. But it is amazing how much flack the good doctor caught for basically disproving with science the Sitchin, Zacharias Sitchin's whole theory on ancient and the Nephilim and all that. And I know that a lot of you guys are out there going, Jeff, but wait, you guys have those guys. Look, let me tell you how I work here. I am fascinated by it all. It is not my job to agree or disagree with you, especially as a guest. It's my job to present and to bring to you a different way of thinking and different ideas. What you do with that is your business. So that was a great show. If you guys want to join us, you can give me a call. We got some time. So if you have Skype, TMO listener, I'm a little, I think I posted, you know what? I messed up. That is my fault, guys, for those that wanted to talk to the good doctor. You guys got to know, TMO listener, LISTENER in Skype. Love to hear from you. If you want to join in the show, in the conversation, we are here. The lines are open. The Skype line is open. Love to hear from you. But yep, just type in TMO space listener, LISTENER. I'll help you out there. I'll do your homework. And then give me a shout. And we can powwow for a few minutes as we wind down. I'll leave the lines open here for the next 15 minutes if you guys want to chat. So Inquisitor, I can't say it. Inquisitor. Yeah, it was a great show. So Jordan Maxwell. Yeah, definitely love to get Jordan on the show. I think that would be awesome. And I am putting that in my little lexicon right now, my little Rolodex, so I can make sure that I reach out to him. And he's not too far from me. So there we go. I will save that, and we will be in touch. I'll get in touch with Jordan. Absolutely. So what a show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I knew it turned out exactly as I thought it would be. Like I said, great shows come from great guests, and you don't get any better than the good doctor. So with that, Hey, Inquisitor, why don't you call in? We can talk. The lines are open. If you have Skype, it's TMO Listener, Listener. Like I said, we will leave these open for the next few minutes, at least 15 more minutes or so. It is Friday. For those that don't know, I am wearing the Battlestar Galactica hat tonight. I don't know why I put it on. I haven't worn this one in a while. Not at all. So I think it was feeling a little lonely out there. It's okay. As I'm out in chat. And that's the other thing too. You can join us in the chat room. You don't necessarily have to be on YouTube to chat with us. You can actually go to the site. And on the right-hand side of our site where it says chat, you can click on that and that will actually launch the chat clients. And that will allow you to chat and participate. You don't have to log in to YouTube or anything like that. That's another feature. We've got a lot of features coming out over the weekend. I'm excited. I can't wait until the show is over, even though I don't want to say goodbye. The reason being is because we have put together, actually with the help of our good friends over at Telos, we put together using their software compression tool. One of the problems that we're having, we're going to be reworking our studio and everything. We're going to do what we can afford to do. We're all on a budget. And so we are going to be reworking the studio over the weekend and everything to get a little bit more stability in our audio, a little bit better quality. And right now we're using one of their products, which is allowing us to make sure that all the levels are set. I'm not too loud, so as I move into the microphone and speak, it doesn't blow your ears out. If you guys are on, now you guys out there on YouTube probably just got blown out, but the people on the radio didn't. And so we're going to take that technology and we're going to tie it into our YouTube channel. So it's all one big happy family. And all of that knowledge that I gained from that, I will be putting together some podcasts and showing you how I did what I did to produce these shows. All of the software, except for you got to have computers, but all of the software that I currently use is all open source, except for our radio portion. That software we had to purchase. You could use open source, and I'll talk to you guys about how to do that. And what is open source? It just means that the source code's out there. It doesn't necessarily mean it's free, but everything I'm using is absolutely free from the streaming. Now, we're like I said, this gives us what you're seeing on YouTube and everything. We're using OBS. We are going to be upgrading our software over the weekend as well for YouTube, because we can give you 2 camera angles, which you'll be able to actually see over my shoulder and also here looking at me. The other thing is that will allow us to feed to about 20 other video feed services, all from one feed. So that is pretty cool. That is coming down the pipe. Over the weekend, we're going to be setting that up as well. Well, if I don't have any takers on the line and everything, I just want to tell everybody it has been a pleasure, been a great week. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you did too. We had some great guests this week. Next week is going to be the week of the Giants, I'd like to say. And the reason being is because we're going to start out with a couple guests that you guys might know, might not. But it's definitely going to be an interesting conversation. Let me pull up our schedule here. And you can get to our schedule by going to our website, themidnightocean.com. And if you scroll down on the right-hand side, you will see the you'll actually see the counter. So on Monday, we have Brian Godwa is going to join us. Joe Taylor. These are Nephilim giants, researchers. These are archaeologists. And then Gerald Artisan is going to be joining us. That's going to be a great conversation. Can't wait for that one. Then Chris Kogos is going to be joining. Chris is a wizard. So yeah, we're going to get in a little black magic. And then we have Lori McDonald rounding out the week. And then the following week, we're going to have Stephanie Osborne is going to join us. Ed Roman on the 30th. We have the 3 days that are open, but we already pretty much have those booked up. I haven't put their names in there. We're just working with publicists and things of that nature and everything. But don't you worry. We're going to have another full week of great guests. One of the things, too, is Sasha is going to come back on the show. I don't know if you guys were listening to the show. Sasha was on the show with me when the hurricane hit. And so we're going to be bringing Sasha back. We were trying to get her in on the 22nd, but Chris already had that date, so we're working out. So Sasha might be one of those guests to fill in the 27th or the 29th through the 29th. But we're going to definitely get Sasha back on the show and complete our conversation. I hate leaving things undone. I definitely hate leaving things undone. So with that, I just want to say, be well, be safe, spend time with people, your family. Do the things that you love to do. Life's too short. So make sure this weekend, if you can, get out and do something. It may be nature, maybe go fishing, whatever makes you happy. I know I'm going to be spending it with the lovely Miss Sandy, and we are going to just hang around the house, I think. Maybe do some swimming if the weather permits, do some yard work. We're still cleaning up from the hurricane and everything. Going to go out and visit the SS Minnow. She's back in the water, but she has no motors. We're getting those repaired, but we'll get out there and do some cleanup work. There's some oil when we pull the motors that we need to get cleaned up before it gets in the water. So without further ado, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the support, all the love you guys have shown me and the efforts that we're doing here on the show. And like always, make sure you tell your friends, your family about us. If you're joining us on YouTube, make sure that you hit that ever important subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. We won't spam you. We don't believe in spam. At the MN Ocean. That's our Twitter handles, at the MN Ocean. And hopefully we will be back on Monday, God willing. And we will show you some cool changes that we are doing to the website. I don't want to say goodbye, but all things must come to an end. So be well. And more importantly, as you guys all know, be love.
Any other human being, catches up with us all. The scars that you get each day make you stronger somehow in some way. Look for your own truth in your heart when it's told. You know, it may seem like a coda, but I learned it from my Baba. It's not what you believe, it's what you do. It's what you do. It's what you do. What you doing now? Of an inch. And loving all is one is supposed to be a cinch. Be a messenger, be a radical, be love. Be a messenger, be a radical, be love. Be love, be a messenger, be a radical, be love, be love. Be a messenger, be a radical, be love, love, love. Be a messenger, be a radical. I wish the Wolfman was back. He'd be taking no shit and he'd be taking no flack. I wish the Wolfman was back. You can bet on this, you can bet on that. Like a pirate in a radio station. Feel the needle and the vibration. Howl out another salutation. For the Jack in the Shack is the one with the knack. I wish the Wolfman was back. He'd be pushing the need and he'd be sharing the feed. I wish the Wolfman was back. He had the knack for pushing music like a heart attack. Acapulco shirts and his goatee. Amplifiers glowing like a sound key. Flying in the face of conformity. Cause the Jack in the Shack is the one with the knack. I wish the Wolfman was back. He'd be taking no shit and he'd be taking no flack. I wish the Wolfman was back. You can bet on this, you can bet on that, yeah.
Hey, you got no love in your heart, man. Don't you know if you got love in your heart, that's gonna make everything all right in the world? Send in your Wolfman Jack for President campaign contribution, baby. I want you to turn your radio up real loud now, and the lights in your room get dim, and the music goes slip and slide right into your soul and your mind, and you gonna know how it feels to flow. How it feels to flow. How it feels to flow.
I wish the Wolfman was back. He'd be taking no shit and he'd be taking no flack. I wish the Wolfman was back. You can bet on this, you can bet on that. I wish the Wolfman was back. He'd be posting the need and he'd be sharing the feed. I wish the Wolfman was back. He had the knack for pushing music like a heart attack. I wish the Wolfman was back. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
This is the Midnight Ocean with Jeff Norton on the Paranormal State Radio Network.
This is the heart and soul of rock and roll with Wolfman Jack. Wolfman Jack. Wolfman Jack. Wolfman Jack.